Wamurath, who is a counseling psychologist. And as Victor has mentioned, the president will be assenting to the IABC bill today at KICC. Remember, this is one of the grievances that the Gen Z had put forth, and it seems that the president was surely listening. So you want to stay tuned to Good Morning Kenya, as we will be covering everything concerning that as well. Ray, good morning.
Good morning, lady and gentlemen. Indeed, we have quite the update in as far as news is concerned, given that also, other than looking at what is going to be coming out from State House as the president assents to the IABC bill there, that is going to pave way for the reconstruction of IABC in itself. Remember, this also borrows very much heavily on the Supreme Court ruling of 2022 September that gave quite the recommendations going forward. We know Chebukati, the chair, his tenure ended at that place, and also we had 3 more whose tenure was null and void after that particular election of 2022. So what happens? This is going to open a new path there as government, rather as Kenyans, we look at a new dispensation. During the Gen Z-driven demos, one of the issues that also was raised by this Gen Zs was the fact that now they wanted to institute, recalling of members of parliament based on performance. But this could not happen because we did not have IABC in place. But now, after today, we're going to have a new way to do things, so to speak, when it comes to matters of IABC. And also some good news for Kenyans is that government has, either rescinded its plan to increase the road levy. Remember, this was to move from 18 shillings per litre to 25 shillings per litre. That would have overall had an overall effect on the high cost of living. We have this and so much more lined up for you in as far as news is concerned. So get tweeting, get us on our X at KBC Channel 1. Mine is at Ray Manyara, and let's get this on the road. We start off with matters of digitization, where Lands Cabinet Secretary Alice Wahome has dismissed claims that there is a scheme by government to increase land taxes by changing freehold land to leasehold. While rolling out an Adisas digital platform in Murang'a County that will see Murang'a landowners access land services online, Wahome said digitization of title deeds is a solution to land fraud cases that included double allocation.
Welcome, Madam CS.
Murang'a County on Monday became the second county after Nairobi to enjoy land services online.
Kama ako satisfied, ata-approve.
This after Cabinet Secretary of Lands Alice Wahome rolled out the Ardhi Sasa digital platform that saw a total of 387,000 title deeds belonging to Murang'a County residents digitized.
The launch of Ardhi Sasa will strengthen the security of land tenure here in Murang'a and elsewhere in the country, as it has been designed to remove human interference with land ownership records.
Kwa sababu security ziko provided kwa registry zetu, mtu mwenye analete title fake ashikwe hapo na wekwe pingu na apelekwe kotini, kwa sababu tuko na evidence ya process ya kotini.
Landowners will however be required to create their accounts on the Ardhi Sasa website to access services that will range from verification of title deeds and transfer of land ownership from one party to another.
Other counties that are next in line are Isiolo, where we should be going in the next 4 weeks, Marsabit, and Mombasa. The pre-launch steps are almost all done for Isiolo and Marsabit.
The CS denied there was a plan to increase land taxes, saying the speculation of changing freehold land to leasehold is illegally impractical.
What we were looking for is a levy for land within cities or urban centers, not land ambaye ni ya nyumbani huko kwa mama, huko kwa nyanya. Our own land outside urban centers were not to be affected.
Lawmakers drawn from Murang'a County hailed the Ardhi Sasa digital platform as a game changer in the fight against land fraud in the country.
Where these conmen and fraudsters are working from is kule kwa survey, director of survey. That's where they steal those deed plans sometimes. Or they push officers to do the wrong things at the survey, then they generate titles from that point.
Titles, land is very emotive. Na watu wetu tukimake sure wako na title mzuri, wakitaka kuisha shamba wanauza vizuri, wakitaka kulease wanalease vizuri bila matatizo mengi, na mambo ya tupunguza mambo ya corruption, the ground will be fine.
Landowners registered on the platform will be notified by SMS and email of any transaction on their land.
Well, that was quite controversial, especially coming during the Gen Z-driven protests that rocked the country for the last 2 weeks or so. That was one of the issues that was raised, and now CS Lansea has given clarity on where to go. Now we look at matters negotiation between the Council of Governors as well as the clinical officers deal there that have signed a return to work formula yesterday after details revealed that the communication that was given on the various social platforms was incorrect. Here's Kamche Menza with the details.
After downing tools for 100 days, paralyzing operations at various health facilities across the country, a deal has finally been struck for the clinical officers to resume operations at hospitals in the counties. In a letter dated 8th July 2024, the Clinical Officers Union and the Council of Governors signed a return-to-work formula that will see their demands addressed.
We have come to an agreement, and we have with us a framework that within around 60 days we'll be able to address the issues that we raised in our strike notice. Then that's a good deal.
By virtue of signing this return to work, we are officially declaring that our strike has come to an end, and our members shall resume duty in their respective place of work starting today and not later than 24 hours from the date herein.
This has come as an opportunity, and I want to say that if I look at the issues that have divided us, they were actually, there's a very thin line, because they are issues that we could agree upon. We may not be able to get 100%, at least 99.9% agreement is good enough.
When beginning the strike on 1st of April 2024, the clinical officers stated 10 demands, including implementation of a 2017 collective bargaining agreement, provision of medical cover, absorption of universal healthcare staff, and payment of risk allowance, among others.
Kaunti zingine ziko na zaidi ya miaka 4 hadi 9 bila kupeana nyongeza kwa watu wetu za kupandisha vyeo. Basi tunasisitiza kwamba hilo lazima lifanywe, na tumekubaliana mkataba kwamba kupandisha vyeo ama promotion itafanywa kuanzia sasa na isipite mwezi wa 9 tarehe 30.
But counties are trying. Counties are trying. Even in spite of the challenges of funding, there are counties that are still recruiting healthcare workers to try and take services to the periphery and to.
However, the strike call-off is not absolute, as Kuko says. Other demands to the national government, such as posting of interns, have not yet been met.
From the Ministry of Health and the people who should actually be showing leadership, we have seen lack of it, and we have not seen that commitment. So the strike continues on the side of the Ministry of Health, because there are issues that we have not been able to agree. We do not have a return to work agreement.
The strike call-off, however, does not affect clinical officers in Vihiga and Marsabit, who are participating in a general strike. A total of 6,200 clinical officers are at the county government, while 200 are employed by the national government.
Now, approximately 4,000 medical, pharmacy and dentist interns have vowed to camp at the Ministry of Health headquarters in Nairobi day and night until they're issued with placement letters. This has been occasioned by the failure to implement a return-to-work formula dated the 8th of May 2024, where the government had promised to post them by the 7th of July this year.
Monday mid-morning at Afya House, Nairobi, vuvuzelas whistled and songs of agitation rent the air. Among the interns is Dr. Blasio Were, who has been waiting for his posting letter for 2 years now to get to practice and get his license. But this now seems like a distant dream.
Serikali ilikuwa imesema kwamba ingeweza kutupa barua kuanzia mwezi wa 4 na barua hizo zilipotoka hazikuwa zinaambatana na mkataba wa mwaka 2017.
His story mirrors that of thousands of other interns.
Sabotaging the lives of these Gen Z doctors that you are seeing out here. They don't want to be posted in batches.
We are yet to do postgraduate training. We have a shortage of specialist doctors. Kenya has less than 500 surgeons. And those surgeons should come from us.
It's not really genuine for people to violate the CBA, which is actually a legal process, and just assume that you should pay them this amount of money when we clearly see that the country has money for other things.
Despite the government promising to ensure the interns receive their posting letters by the 7th of July this year, in a return to work formula dated the 8th of May this year, it is yet to be actualized.
And it's our right to be posted within 30 days of completion of studies as per our legal CBA, which was deposited in the labor court.
As you know, the law says that if you practice medicine without a license, you're liable to 3 million shillings fine and 5 years imprisonment. You see, that is a hefty penalty for me to afford. Therefore, I cannot practice.
The long wait has resulted in depression among some of the interns who are almost losing hope after 6 years of medical school training.
Some of us are actually, there are people that I know that are gatemen, some that are my colleague, I know who are house helps, and they are doctors, for heaven's sake.
We have been at home for 2 years now. Our knowledge is decaying and we are losing opportunities to advance our lives. The psychological suffering we endure is immense. Without a license, we cannot practice medicine. Many of us are grappling with depression and suicidal ideation due to this injustice.
They have vowed to be relentless.
All interns must be posted today with payments as per the 2017 CBA between MOH and KMPDU.
Post us and pay us, pay our postgraduate doctors.
The protests continue amidst a heavy presence of anti-riot police officers, attracting a bigger crowd as the day progressed. The medical doctors vowed to camp here day and night until they receive their placement letters, according to the CBA 2017 terms. Serafina Robi from the Ministry of Health, Nairobi.
Well, government, on the other hand, promises that with this current financial year, they're going to be prioritizing the employment of medical or intern medical doctors using 169 billion shillings that has to be borrowed to bridge the deficit that was left by the vacated now finance bill that had a deficit of 346. Government is going to institute 177 billion budget cuts so that it can finance some of those issues, among them also the employment of JSS teachers. Now, Kakamega Governor Fernandes Baraza, who also serves as the Council of Governors Finance Committee Chair, has called on the national government to expedite the release of funds for counties for the months of May and June to ensure smooth operations of the county government services. Speaking during the launch of a mother-to-child health campaign dubbed Imarisha Afya ya Mama na Mtoto, the governor regretted that the delay in disbursing funds had severely affected the running of devolved units, particularly the health sector.
Sisi kama walimu ama wale ambao wanasimamia walimu, wakati huu walimu wakuu wanapitia changamoto kubwa sana. Kwa sababu gani? Zile hela serikali iliweza kusema kwamba inaleta katika shule zetu haifiki kwa shule. Kile kiwango ambacho tunapata ni kidogo sana.
Elsewhere, advocates of girl child rights in Migori and Homa Bay counties are pushing for inclusion of men in the fight against early pregnancies and marriages in the region.
The girls are saying that the boys have now come out to support them in re-entry, and even when they get pregnant and they are re-entered to school.
Apologies for that mix-up. We seem to have the wrong story there. That was just a sample of what we had actually prepared for you in as far as matters of counties are concerned. But then we'll be getting that to that in a few minutes. Let's look at media on protest and how we handled it. Now, the Kenya Media Sector Working Group has expressed readiness to facilitate a genuine and transparent engagement on key issues raised by Generation Z in their push for reforms. The group, while lauding the peaceful protesters for coming out to reject the Finance Bill of 2024 in totality, hailed the government for listening to the call.
The Gen Z-led protests for the past 2 weeks have been lauded as critical national conversation steering initiative that demanded respectful and genuine attention from those in authority. Despite the withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024, underlying issues still remain.
From economic hardship and youth unemployment to educational challenges and the need for good governance. Bureaucratic hurdles in accessing critical public services such as ID cards, passports, and help, funding, the difficult environment of doing business, among others.
While lauding the withdrawal of the bill, the group expressed displeasure in the response by the police during the peaceful demonstrations that led to the injury of people, including members of the Fourth Estate.
We equally condemn attacks on press freedom through direct threats of shutdown to media organizations. A thorough and independent investigation must be conducted to hold those responsible accountable.
The group further pledged to provide accurate, balanced and responsible reportage that reflects the diverse perspective within the society, even as it announced plans to host a transparent engagement on topical issues raised by the Gen Zs.
Open dialogue is essential for finding solutions, and the media will play a crucial role in fostering this exchange.
We are dedicated to continually engage this critical segment of our society through in-depth, clear and comprehensive coverage of their vision for Kenya.
Going forward, the Kenya Media Sector Working Group says it will develop a platform where Kenyans, including the Gen Z, will engage on critical issues affecting the nation.
To the corridors of justice, where the Kenyan government has been ordered to pay the family of the late Pakistani television journalist Ashad Arif 10 million shillings as compensation following his murder by police officers in 2022. Elsewhere in Kajiado High Court, that is in Kajiado High Court, Judge Stella Mutuku ruled on Monday that Sharif's murder was unconstitutional and that his rights to life and protection were violated. 2 petitions have been filed before the Milimani High Court seeking to stop the establishment of the Presidential Task Force for Auditing Public Debt as gazetted by President William Ruto last Friday. Details in our Skills of Justice segment.
While delivering the judgment, the High Court in Kajiado found that Kenya violated Ashad Sharif's right to life, dignity, freedom from torture, cruel and degrading treatment. Sharif's family, led by his widow Javeria Siddiq, sued the government for killing their king, arguing that he had the right to be protected and was wrongfully killed. The court has reiterated the use of lethal force is an extreme measure and must only be used as a last resort when another life is in danger. The state has, however, asked the court to suspend the ruling for at least 30 days to allow them file an appeal. And 2 petitions have been filed Monday under certificate of urgency before Milimani's High Court, seeking to quash the establishment of the Presidential Task Force for Auditing the Public Debt as gazetted by President William Ruto on Friday. The petitioners Eunice Ngange and Dr. Magare Gikenyi are opposed on how the appointment of the members and allocation of their responsibility was conducted. They argue that it usurps, undermines and duplicates the function of the Auditor General, the controller of budget, the Cabinet Secretary and the Ministry of Finance and Parliament as enshrined in the Constitution. Elsewhere, the Shakahola massacre, where 446 bodies were exhumed from the Shakahola forest, has kicked off at Shanzu Law Court before Principal Magistrate Leah Juma. However, the proceedings were conducted in camera to protect the witnesses.
Environmentalists are calling for the harmonization of cross-border environmental conservation policies and legal frameworks to enhance conservation efforts between Kenya and other countries in the Horn of Africa region. Speaking during the 9th annual Horn of Africa region environment meeting that is underway in Nairobi, the group cited the lack of sufficient financial capacity to implement their environmental conservation ambitions as the largest, or rather the main challenge that they face.
Environmentalists drawn from countries around the Horn of Africa region are meeting in Nairobi to deliberate on how to foster regional collaboration on environmental issues, exchange best practices, and identify opportunities for partnership and collaboration. The participants decried the lack of harmonized environmental conservation policies and legal frameworks, saying conflicting environmental regulations among different countries hamper the conservation efforts.
Environments do not really respect boundaries. You know, if you have a river that is crossing from South Sudan, Sudan or to Kenya, it will cross. If you have wildlife that is using the transborder area, they will keep crossing.
One of the objectives, as I said, is also to look into policy gaps through our project activities and communicate that to policymakers as policy briefs, evidences from the ground, so that we will be able to influence changing policies in some of the countries.
They also cited the lack of sufficient financial capacity to implement their environmental conservation ambitions as one of the biggest challenges facing them.
Sometimes there are ambitions, actions in the plans, but sometimes they may not be implemented as expected because of this lack of capacity, and also sometimes lack of information data to actually implement those activities.
Kajiado Deputy Governor Martin Moshisho called for a cross-border collaboration, especially between Kenya and Tanzania in animal disease control, to avoid the spread of immunizable diseases between the two countries.
Anything that affects livestock in Tanzania will eventually affect livestock in Kenya and vice versa. And
now to that story that we had earlier on sampled, that is just a recap of what was happening across the counties as prepared by Kaschana Masha.
Speaking during a Thanksgiving and song launch ceremony at St. Monica Chakol Girls School, the Kenya National Union of Teachers TESO Branch Secretary Geoffrey Ekasiba urged parents not to abdicate the role of paying school fees for their children to the government.
Sisi kama walimu ama wale ambao wanasimamia walimu, wakati huu walimu wakuu wanapitia changamoto kubwa sana. Kwa sababu gani? Zile hela serikali iliweza kusema kwamba inaleta katika shule zetu haifiki kwa shule. Kile kiwango ambacho tunapata ni kidogo sana.
Elsewhere, advocates of girl-child rights in Migori and Homa Bay counties are pushing for inclusion of men in the fight against early pregnancies and marriages in the region.
The girls are saying that the boys have now come out to support them in re-entry, and even when they get pregnant and they are re-entered to school, they say the boys have taken lead through the Tuseme Club in talking to the institution on how to support the other girls who've not gotten pregnant.
Meanwhile, hotels, lodges and camps in Masai Mara Game Reserve have recorded a 95% bed occupancy in early bookings and are hopeful of reaping big during the wild beast migration season, which runs from July to September. And residents of Kajiji Village, Mwea constituency, Kirinyaga County, have lauded Kirinyaga University for establishing a cottage industry to train them on cotton farming.
We started by training a first lot of 33, but we do intend to continue increasing this number by working together with those who have already been trained to continue the training more and more, so that at the end of the day the impact is bigger.
Tukiangalia vijana na wamama huwa wanabaki nyuma kimapato, lakini hii project waki-embrace waweze kuishika vizuri, unapata ya kwamba maisha yao itabadilika.
Finally, Matungu member of National Assembly Peter Nabulindo has called on religious leaders to pray for peace in the wake of chaos linked to the anti-finance bill demonstrations.
Kuna watu wana nia ya kuzamisha hii nchi. Kama mmepewa hii, mkapewa hili, mkapewa hili, nini ingine bado mnataka? Hiyo ni kutaka kuleta ghasia katika nchi yetu, nchi ambayo sisi tunapenda amani, ile ambayo rais amesha kubali, wale waridhike na hiyo.
We take a quick breather. When we're back, we're going to be putting matters of business into perspective.
Sheria lazima kufuatwa.
Sheria gani?
Kila mtu asimamisha anachokifanya, biashara zote zifungwe.
Nitakuja kukuangalia, lakini sasa hivi nitakuja kuangalia baadaye, maana kitafaa kwenda kwa kutawaza kwa kiongozi mpya.
Na kusudia kuimarisha uchumi wetu wa hapa Funzi. Imarike hivi kwamba tusiwe tena tukitegemea bodo.
Kama ni jasiri itabidi pale apaondoke, na kama ni huyo Sitara atafutiwe wazazi wake pale wako, arudishwe kwao.
I have never seen such a book of a contract yawa.
To make it worse, reading is not my strong suit. I just confirm the bay, alafu naweka kidole bahali yake.
That's true. That's correct. I am your counselor and my name is Sir Nicholas.
Kwani they didn't find anyone better? We don't utilize leftovers, you know.
That was very important, teacher. Besa, you can proceed.
How about you settle down and we get this lesson kicking?
Kicking who? Malimo, by the way, we don't have time for your jokes. With all due respect, get out.
Welcome back. This is in the headlines. Now we switch gears and speak matters business, where the government has withdrawn a proposal to charge 7 shillings per litre of fuel as road maintenance levy. Roads Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen says the government is exploring other ways of raising additional funding for road maintenance. Currently, motorists pay 18 shillings per litre for road maintenance. This means it would have been 25 shillings per litre.
The Roads Ministry estimates it needs an urgent 37 billion shillings to repair roads affected by the recent floods. The amount is part of 157 billion shillings the government needs to repair 3,600 kilometers of roads that it says are in dire condition. Roads Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen says the government is contemplating reorganizing tax levied on petroleum products to raise the amount needed for roads repair to cushion Kenyans from high fuel prices.
How do we increase the 7 shillings without increasing 7 shillings at the pump? How is that possible? The day we announce 7 shillings increase, how do we ensure that the people of Kenya do not receive a direct 7 shillings increase at the pump? And the people of Kenya paid us to go and think.
Murkomen says if the new proposed levies matrix will not sail through,
Government will be forced to degrade some tarmac roads to Maram to make them navigable.
If the levy doesn't materialize, unfortunately, we can't toll now a road until we maintain the roads. If the levy does not materialize, we will just simply have to do the minimum. A road that was tarmac, because now we are unable to fill the potholes and all that, we can grade it to become Maram. You know, it's the basic option, so that then you take it to a level where you are able to maintain.
Murkomen asked that some roads will also remain undone, as the road ministry is grappling with the 165 billion shillings in pending bills.
Ours, we don't need Panadol. This ministry needs the amount of resources equivalent to if you are treating a patient a surgery to be able to deal with the problem.
The government estimates that the roads maintenance deficit will increase to 315 billion shillings in the next 3 years if no measures are taken to replenish the maintenance kitty.
Well, that puts a cap on Matters News this morning. Be sure to visit our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke, to get further details. Some of the stories that we're going to keenly be focusing on as they develop is that particular plan by intern medical doctors to continue camping outside the MOH buildings, just demanding that they be employed as per the CBA agreement. We're also going to be focusing on what is going to be happening from the courts. Remember, 94 witnesses are going to be taking to the stand. They began this yesterday against controversial evangelist Mackenzie there, who is facing 13 counts of terrorism there. We're also going to be waiting to have that feed from State House Nairobi at 9 a.m. where President William Ruto is expected to assent to the IABC bill that is going to pave way for the reconstitution of the IABC. Those are just some of the issues that are developing and we're keeping tabs on. Putting a cap on matters in the headlines, I leave in the capable hands of Victor as he delves into the matters of governance and politics that we find ourselves in at. I'm Regina Manyara. Have a pleasant viewing ahead.
All right, welcome back. It's now 8 minutes past 7 a.m. Karibu sana to the program. This is Good Morning Kenya. Of course, we need to be taking a look at some of the things that will be taking place in the country today. And of course, at 9 a.m., as we earlier told you, the president will be signing the IABC bill live at KICC. So be sure to catch that event that will be coming to you live in studio here on KBC Channel 1. I hope you had a great morning. In the city, it's been raining since yesterday. Gentlemen, it's been a great day. I have got Butichi, who is from the government, the other side of government delivery unit. Butichi, karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
He's a governance expert as well as a political analyst. I also have Wakili, advocate of the High Court, Wakili George Kithi. Wakili, good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
A lot has been happening in the country. I don't know what you make of it. The IBC bill finally is getting to have some ink on it. Wakili.
Yes, I think it's time. In fact, it's late in the day because, you see, we have a representative democracy in this country. Over 1 year now, there are people who have not been represented. Yet other constituencies and representations have the advantage of representation. They are accounted for on account of what's on the table and what's for them. it is said that there can't be legislation without representation, meaning that all the laws that are being made for those people who don't have representation are being made without that representation, which is crucial.
Yes.
So that if you come from a constituency where the member of parliament is no longer a member of parliament for whatever reason prescribed in law, either by death or by application of law of whatever nature, it means therefore that if they are passing the finance bill, they're doing it without your voice, that is equal to the other voices being voiced, for the reason that you are not being represented. And therefore, that's an illegality, that's unconstitutional. We need to correct that almost immediately. I know that has not been robustly taken up, or it's now that it's coalescing into an issue that the government and the country is looking at. But it must be signed. There's no option to it. It must be signed, and we must fill those positions so that then we can do the business, which is crucial, that unifies us.
Yes.
Democracy and IABC is one of the institutions that remains as a pillar in advancing democracy.
We have so many constituencies, including several wards. Let's come. A classic example is Banisa constituency.
Yes.
Almost 2 years without a representation.
Yes.
But then you'll allow me to ask you this question, and perhaps you can answer it in the next round. Whether the people of Banisa can legally take either government, Attorney General, IABC, or which institution to court for lack of representation. I know somebody would argue because they have got a woman rep, but does that role of a woman rep equate to the role of a member of parliament? All right, in terms of the job description, et cetera, et cetera. They've not had representation for, since election, 2-3 months thereafter until now. But Engineer Hamisi Butichi is also here with me. You must be a happy man. Finally, the IBC bill is getting some ink on it as well. Let me get your point of that.
Yeah, thank you. I would want to say that first of all, the views I represent this talk show are my personal views.
Very important.
And not government official position. Secondly, is that we've not had IBC for that long. And the way my brother said, there are those constituencies, wards, which do not have representative in Bunge or in whatever capacity. They have not been represented for the last 2 or 1 year. It is high time that, because we didn't really imagine a situation whereby most of the commissioners, if not all of them, would not be in office, so that should a vacancy arises due to death or court cases or resignation or whatever, then would have no people to conduct the elections. So my suggestion is that Bunge should also look into mechanisms of coming up with a law. Because really, if we have vacancy in 2 constituencies in the country, it doesn't need the whole IBC commission to be able to conduct that election. So Bunge should look at other mechanisms which can be used in case such a scenario happens. Because the way our commissioners come in, like the ones who resigned,
yes,
they resigned almost at the same time. The chairman was also retiring. We should have a mechanism of even having staggered tenures of these commissioners, so that at no point should we not have all the commissioners, most of them, in the office. So we should have a mechanism of curing that if a vacancy arises in one constituency or a few wards, then the elections can still proceed with a certain minimum threshold of management within the IBC.
Yes, I like what you said, but look, we know IBC, the commission itself is an independent commission. But is it independent? Because somebody would argue that that commission has been affected, politically speaking. Butishi?
Of course, from a political angle, is that is a political body. Because, for example, the government cannot unilaterally decide who commissioners are. Even the other political parties within the country participate in the process. That is what is envisaged, that all the political parties within the country, especially the major politicals, will be involved in terms of deciding who the commissioners and how the selection process is for the commissioners. These, I think, it came through whatever we had in the past, the IPP.
Yes.
That whenever this body is being constituted, then all other political parties, apart from the government party, then all other political parties should be involved. Of course, yes, there must be some political contribution towards the commission.
Yeah. Wakili, you also have 2 questions on the same, and the first question I asks you whether somebody can go to court and sue, I don't know who, for lack of representation.
Now, legality of a law is based on the majoritarian rule that the more the members of parliament pass it, it becomes binding on everyone. That's one aspect. But again, it is a very good test before the court for a person from an affected area without representation to argue that we are arguing, for instance, on a finance bill that is getting passed or whatever type or piece of legislation. And a person from Kimilili has an advantage. A person from Nairobi has an advantage. A person from Machakos is being represented. I have not been represented. Certainly you can't take a person from Turkana to come to Kiambu to ask people in Kiambu what they think about a certain bill as he represents Turkana. Representative is a bias for the people that have sent you to represent. There's no bias when there's nobody. Death is silence. It doesn't speak, and those that are in the grave don't speak to anyone. And therefore, the representation ceases by law when a person ceases to hold their office on account of application of law, including death. And therefore, there is no representation before Parliament if then there is no person occupying that office of representation at an MCS level or Member of Parliament or Women Rep. Of course, this has been envisaged in law, and that's why there are laws on how a vacant position is to be filled. And that is handicapped by additional experiences, including that there is non-constitution or an unconstituted body that oversees the authority for elections, that is IABC. And that is not the problem. It is bad politics and bad behavior of those in authority not to constitute it, include the competitive politics that we have. That protagonism certainly then silences the voice of those that will speak to representation. Direct democracy largely is exercised when we hold our elections initially under Article 1, so that we send people to a congregation, a summit of sorts in Parliament, where then they make laws for the people and their voices are heard. Indirect democracy, therefore, exercised by the people of that constituency that is affected, for instance, is when a person speaks. So it means, therefore, there's no exercise of indirect democracy, of whatever type of democracy whatsoever. When a law is passed, including the finance bill the other day, in fact, when people are doing mandamano, the type of mandamano of such people should be very different. Should be that, yes, that mandamano is because you are represented in the first place and dissatisfied. We didn't even have the advantage whatsoever of voicing our voices in the first place so that we can be in the same platform of mandamano. So then it is illegal, unconstitutional, and therefore very damaging for laws to be passed when others are not being represented. It is actually discriminatory.
That's what you call unfair representation.
It is discriminatory. It is discriminatory because it
So now what happens in this situation?
It means for those 2 years...
This bill is going to be...
For those 2 years, whatever law has been passed, the voices of those people that did not have a representative were never heard. So it means we've passed laws, we've actually committed this country into expenditure when those people's money have been taken away from their pockets in terms of taxes without seeing how the money should be used. And there can't be taxation without legislation where a person has been represented.
Can a woman represent them on behalf of members of parliament?
No. A woman rep is put there for very special reasons. And that is activism, period. And even that activism is skewed to a certain gender. So a woman rep, for instance, in terms of how members of parliament act in parliament, there are those that go there and act substantially to represent a constituency or sub-county. But there are those that go there to represent the youth, the women, the disabled. And that constituency is not restricted to a certain constituency, it's for the whole country. So a person representing people with disabilities is not a person representing a certain constituency of people in this country.
And even when you look at our constitution, we have various seats. We have from the president, deputy, MPs, a member of National Assembly, governors. There was a reason why all those positions are there. For example, a woman rep will represent majorly disadvantaged groups within the county, not the constituency. She cannot come down to represent a constituency. So it means that all the national issues that have been conversed at National Assembly, then this constituency was never really represented. Because you remember, National Assembly discusses matter at national level. Whatever my MCA represents me at county level, at ward level, those issues are conversed there and they end there. But now when it comes to national issues, which are supposed to be conversed by the National Assembly, it means then people from those constituencies where they don't have representation in Parliament, in National Assembly, then they were disadvantaged. Same thing to county assemblies. The MCAs who've perhaps been removed by courts or died, also they were never represented at that particular level of county level. Yes.
All right, gentlemen, let me take you through the front page of local dailies very quickly. On the front page of the Standard, patience runs thin on Ruto reform pledges. Patience runs thin on Ruto reform pledges. This is what's on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Okay. Still on the headline there, Gachagua and wife sulk over reduced office budgets. All right. So that is what is here. Remember in 2022, there was a journalist who was, quote unquote, who was shot on account of a mistaken identity, now state to pay 10 million shillings for Pakistani killing. The court ruled yesterday. And gentlemen, intern doctors spent a night at Afia House yesterday. So I don't know how it's going to pan out today. And yesterday, the minister, the cabinet secretary for health, also met some of the medical officials. And now here we are, Gen Z's plan with military precision. Gen Z's plan with military precision. That is what we have on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Very quickly on the front page of the Star, again, ministers starved of 244 billion shillings budget cash. More or less the same as what's here on for Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Ministries starved of 244 billion shillings cash, budget cash. What do you have on the front page of the Daily Nation? This one is more of a narration of members of parliament, how we fled. I don't know where they fled and what happened, but I think it's in relation to what happened during the Mandamano. And we have got Milu Dhiambo here, we have got Didmas Baraza representing Kimilili, and Bishop Jackson Kosgei, who is a nominated member of parliament. They're just giving a narration on how they fled, how we fled. This must be an interesting story. And Gachagua isolated at home and away. Again, that's what we have here on the front page of the Daily Nation. Gentlemen, very quick, let me start with you, Butichi. I want you to combine all the three pages. That's how we fled. Ministry starved of 244 billion shillings budget cash, as well as patience ran thin on Ruto reforms pledge. Take it away.
Thank you. I think those stories highlight what is going on in the country, and more so the demonstration that we've seen for the last 3-4 weeks arising from the finance bill. All those are ripple effects of those mandamanos. Yes. And the eventual withdrawal of the finance bill from becoming into law. I want to say that the kind of mandamanos that we are seeing being demonstrated by the young people, they are what we used to see in the past. But this time round, those mandamanos are about enforcement of the constitutional changes that we made during the 2010 constitution. That's the first thing. Initially, those who were there before used to fight for those particular rights and constitutionalism to be entrenched in the constitution. But we are no longer fighting for those particular constitutional rights to be enshrined in the constitution, but rather to be implemented. That's number one. Number two, if you look at the mandamano that we're having right now, is about the economic justice of people. Because at the end of it, after withdrawal of the bill, what we are saying is that the youth are saying there are no jobs, there are no opportunities for us in terms of economic empowerment. So it's kind of different from what used to happen initially, in that sense that right now people are fighting for economic empowerment by government opening up spaces, giving opportunities for the young people, and also minimizing on the expenditure by the government. Because when you minimize expenditure, it means that whatever you've saved can actually be directed to creating employment opportunities for the young people. And this was just a time bomb that was waiting, because these young people did not start lacking jobs today. It has been a problem that has been piling over years. It's only that when this government came into place, it came on a hope of many young people that things will be different, job spaces will be opened, business opportunities will be opened. I can tell you that whatever budget cuts you're seeing there, these are budget cuts that are done on things that are physical. For example, when you remove tea from offices, when you remove those unnecessary travels. But I can tell you where I'm coming from as an engineer, there's a lot of money that is wasted in projects. Why? You find projects are being overpriced by those who are in the offices, in the ministries. You find the unnecessary spending in those projects. So when the president is done with those physical items that he can talk of budget cuts in terms of travels, in terms of teas and coffees in the offices, the next step then should be that we should now look into those projects that are being implemented by different ministries. How they are budgeted, how the BQs are made, whether there is wastage, whether there is thieving in those BQs. That should be the next one. I can assure you as an engineer.
What is BQs, for the sake of my kids?
Bills of quantities.
All right.
Because what happens in some of the ministries is a project could be costing 1 billion, but you find those bill of quantities that have been appraised to read 1.3 or 0.4. If we go that way, then we're going to save more money that can go into creating job opportunities and business opportunities for the young people. One thing that Bunge came up with some time back was that they gave a provision within the procurement plan, procurement PPUA, that there will be companies for the youth. Youth will form companies, people with disabilities, women. But what we see today, when those companies get jobs, they don't belong to youth. Because initially, what Kibaki did, actually by 2008, I voted for Kibaki for the second term. What he did that time is that when this law became law, he made sure that ministries, most of the ministries and government agencies, were segregating the contracts into smaller units so that these young people can be able to share out. But right now what you find is that most ministries and state departments, they accumulate those projects, because I don't know whether in this country there's a youth who can do a project worth 100 million. Then he must be a very privileged youth, because we're talking about projects of 5 million, 2 million, 3 million, so that we can have more youth getting this
the financial power.
Yes.
Okay, before you take a break, quickly, but then just a disclaimer. You said that budget cuts for coffee and tea in offices. We have coffee. We have coffee here. Yeah, we have coffee. You can confirm that.
Yeah, I can confirm.
Very good, very good. Wakili, on the front page, we'll take a break. What do you make of the front pages?
Let me twist it a bit into the constitutionality and what that means. Let me read to you what Article 1 says, which is a very interesting issue, and I know many people don't look at. It says all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya, and shall be exercised only through or only in accordance with the Constitution. That's very important. But the second one is the magical one. People, the people of Kenya, may exercise their sovereign power either directly, please note that, either directly or through their democratically elected representatives. I repeat, the people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representative. Now, in law, when a word comes before another, the second one, when there's use of the word or, the second one becomes the option. So the people may exercise their sovereign power directly. So first, you can choose as a people of Kenya to exercise your democratic power directly, foremost, or through the MPs. All right? So the MP is second to the people. It's not the first. I know there's this environment as if they come first in everything they do. Members of parliament are secondary in terms of the constitution's option. They're optional. So every time we exercise our power, it is the first in options that are given by the constitution. The second are the members of parliament. So for us to congregate at Kasarani, at whatever environment, and say this is what we want, that is exactly what the constitution says. And then you can go to parliament and pass it. So when we say the budget must read as follows as a people, in the manner we have done it, that's the first option, appointed by the constitution, appointed by ourselves. Then members of parliament can come second. So in a sense, what we're saying is, whatever people of Kenya says, their voice is greater than the voice of the members of parliament.
Elected.
It means, therefore, for whatever, how the elasticity of that statement depends on how we interpret it in law, of course, how the courts will look at it. But it must be done on members of parliament that they come second to the people of Kenya in matters, administration, and whatever people of Kenya want. So when we say, in a voice that is majoritarian to the people of Kenya, do not pass the finance bill, we have said, because the constitution has given us that voice in Article 1, sub-Article 2. It is not what they say. So it was very offensive of the constitution for members of parliament to try and overrule and overturn the will of the people, the sovereign power of the people, by passing that bill. It is a shame.
Let's take a break. Wow. Are you in a law class? In Kenya School of Law? No, we've just gotten 101.
I come from School of Engineering.
That was a nice interpretation. I mean, yeah. You get it? Okay, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Unajua, token meter yako inahitaji system update. Ni rahisi na ni free. Ukipata ujumbe kutoka Kenya Power, yani SMS, weka kodi ya kwanza kureset, alafu weke kodi ya pili kuupdate, ili token meter yako iendelee kufanya kazi kama kawaida. Update token meter yako. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na Kenya Power and Lighting Company.
Is this all you want for yourself?
Well, you don't know the terms of my employment, do you?
Have you met your replacement?
I'm about to.
I now see why he could be interested in you.
What are you talking about here?
Hufai kuwa hii Kenya, Ronald.
I'm tired of everyone telling me what I should do.
No, Kaikara, you're not seeing a ghost. It's good to see you again, Ronald.
How can I help?
By finding out what they are planning. Looks like you came to get your hands dirty, huh?
I don't see any other way, Nick.
Hakuna watchman huku?
Because you feel exposed, Dama.
Everybody has got something to lose. I always get what I want.
Surprise me, Kaikara. Or else I will.
Okay, welcome back. Buttigieg, what are you saying? Continue. Go ahead.
I was just making a rejoinder to my brother here that, you know, the way MPs have narrowly interpreted that article is that people will have a direct representation at voting. Then thereafter, the members of parliament carry the burden of representation of the people through the various houses, the Senate, the National Assembly, the County Assembly. But the way my brother puts it is that actually people can decide, they can meet and decide and give a resolution. But then my question is, if they gave a resolution that, for example, we don't want this, and then the members of parliament, or members of National Assembly, those who went against that decision, what is the fallback for the mwananchi, Wakili?
Yeah, just to expand on that, and then I tie to it, what you've said is this, that look at the government as a company. The company has shareholders, primarily the owners of the company. Then they appoint directors. The directors will make decisions on a day-to-day basis. Fundamentally, shareholders of a company can overrule directors.
Yes.
Right? Because they merely represent what the shareholders want. So if there'll be dividends to be paid, for instance, to the shareholders, and the shareholders want their dividends, but the directors not want, the dividends will be paid to the shareholders anyway, through a resolution of the shareholders. They just need to come together and overrule them, and even remove the shareholders. So that is how the country is organized, that there'll be representatives who will speak for us on a day-to-day basis. But the day that we think they're not committing themselves to our ideals, we can overrule them, and we did overrule them. We forced them to take back, or we forced a situation that was not in agreement with the population. Now, coming to what are the options if members of parliament become belligerent in the manner that was experienced recently. Remember that we have put tools to implement the first section of Article 1, Sub-Article 2, the sovereign power of the people, meaning every law that is going to be made, you have always to go back to the sovereign power of the people and ask them through something called public participation. And ask them, this budget, we are putting money for the wife of Gachagua. Do you want the wife of Gachagua to have this money? All right? And when we say no, but then the members of parliament, they go and put the money to the wife of Gachagua anyway, what we tell them is that then we are going to occupy parliament. And parliament was occupied. That was Article 1, the first part of Article 1, Article 1, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution. So there was nothing illegal about going there to flush them out in a manner to tell them to resign their decision. And I know they regret, because it obviously became obvious that they had not implemented the will of the people. We are saying this. First, the Constitution talks about the will of the people before the will of members of parliament. Members of parliament are merely representation, maybe directors of a big company called Kenya. The shareholders are the people. When they overrule, when they say do not pass this, we want this to happen, or we do not want this to happen. Because when you go to parliament, we send you with only two cards: do or do not, the do's and the don'ts. So if you go there and implement something that is beholden to some other power other than the power of the people, meaning sovereign power of the people, you are therefore committing an illegality unto the people. It is therefore offensive to the people. Meaning, therefore, Article 1 can apply. And the people then can take, it's not taking law into their hands, it's taking sovereign power to be the most dominant aspect than representative power.
Let's just come back home slightly. And now the president is going to assent to that bill at KICC. Something quite unique here. Most of the bills are always signed in parliament, in State House, but this time around, it's going to be done in public at the KICC. Mutichi, why do you think that is happening? You know, why not in State House this time around?
To my thinking is, you know, State House for the last couple of months has gained a bad name. For example, MPs were accused that they went there. They were coerced, and they accepted to go and implement a wrong bill. So, as matter of maybe public perception, and you see, once you're in the State House, all authority and advantage belongs to the president, who is the occupier of the State House. So for me, for my own thinking is that for it to be done in a public place like KICC, is probably to have wananchi have confidence in that bill, because it's a public space, and my cue, all political leaders, party leaders, have been
Even
invited.
the finance bill is a public property.
Yes.
It belongs to the people.
Normally, you see, for those kind of bills, which are for the public good, ordinarily the president should be in Harambee House, because that is the office where most of the actual work should be done.
Yes.
But most of the time, because of conveniency and other reasons, those bills are normally taken to State House for signing. But ordinarily, it should happen at Harambee House. For this time round, I think since he wants to have everybody on board from all the political parties, then KICC serves better.
What has changed? Wakili, I'm just curious here. What has changed? Because even the finance bill, what people are talking about, including a primary school kid, finance bill 2024, was under State House.
Yes.
Actually, it was not signed.
That's my own reasoning.
That is your, yeah, I get it. But
yes.
Why that change? All of a sudden, that you're having this IBC bill signed at the KICC and not in State House? Was it to accommodate everyone, including the opposition members of parliament, civil society, and all that?
Now, there are two issues, emergent issues in that thinking. There is the question of legality and legitimacy, which I think we've discussed before here. President William Ruto is legally the President of the Republic of Kenya. There's no argument about it. But legitimacy to rule is about the power of the people accepting you as the president. So whatever you say, we listen. There have been many questions. He's been questioned. And therefore you can say that the legitimacy was being shaken on account of the demonstration by Gen Zs. And legitimacy is a question of how you appeal to the public. By the way, you can issue an order to even a military at times, and they don't respect it because the legitimacy has been compromised. Now, there are tools, symbolic tools that you need to use in order to impose the legitimacy element as opposed to the legality, because legality remains a constant throughout your term. Now, when you do, those tools include how you respond to the complaints or the threats to the legitimacy element. One of it is obviously to be seen in public. Number two, to preside over, because at times such issues, you preside over a military parade, just so that then you show you are in control. Now, one act, I believe, that then expands and imposes the element of legitimacy is to change the fact that in secrecy or in the seat of power at State House or whatever forum, that is the usual seat, taken away, of course, from the people, not a public place, will be the place where most of the laws are signed. And because people have looked at this seat in a manner that it does not restore confidence, you need to come down to the people. You need to climb down to the people. In doing so, symbolism becomes very important. One of the symbolic tools you use is how you engage in open. And therefore, one of it is to sign the bill.
Could it be because IBC has, the issue of IBC has been shrouded with a lot of secrecy and a lot of political chest thumping and all that? Butichi, when you look at that, we've not had IBC in place for now since last election. But could it be because every electoral cycle, we usually have this issue of IBC, including the likes of Utino Kajwang, the late, talked about IBC issue. We are not going to the next election without the reconstitution of the IBC, and now we are having it here. And the way all of you are saying that it has to come back to the people. So it doesn't belong to one individual, the president. It's being signed in State House because now this is a president's document.
Yeah, IBC as a commission, though independent, the way I said earlier, is normally involves a lot of consultations among the political parties. That's number one. Number two is that the way also the appointment is done of these commissioners, normally they are supposed to run just one election. And then get into the next term, halfway or quarter way, then we have a new IBC in place. The way the appointments are normally done. Because if it's done for 5 years and then you appoint midway in the first term, then it means to run the next election, and then midterm, it will be back home. So the way you've said is that, the way Wakili has said is that it being drawing interest from various political players, then it cannot be a reserve of the event or the ceremony happening only in State House. Remember, State House is a restricted area where even members of public will not have a glimpse of what is happening inside there, only the invites. But today at KCC, if you are on the streets of Nairobi, you can walk in there and witness the signing of these documents. Basically, what the president is doing is, the way my brother I say that, he tries to use that one to bring confidence of all Kenyans that whatever process now going forward into nominating those commissioners, it will be an open book for everybody, starting with the bill into the act and then the normal management procedures which will be involved in appointing those commissioners.
So what should you expect now moving forward? Because now IBC is going to be reconstituted. We have got a lot is going, the wheel is going to start rolling from today once it's assented to. So what do you expect? Because the house is empty, basically.
I expect the process to move with speed. That's first thing. That the procedures put in place to appoint these commissioners will be done back to back. We'll not have a situation whereby we have a stalemate. Because at the start of it, if you're involving all the political parties and then you're agreeing on the way forward, then we should have minimal disruptions in the process. That's number one. Number two, I expect an IBC that will be all-inclusive in terms of everybody getting satisfied that whatever commissioners are there, they're not only being fronted by one political party or two, that everybody will be comfortable with it. Going into the next election, 2027, then we should have also minimal complaints from the other parties. So those are my two expectations with today's event, that those two will be met along the way.
Okay, your expectation, because remember during the dialogue committee at the Bomas, there's a bit of some recommendations which came out. And as EMEO, as a body, also recommended a certain composition of the IBC as it is. Do you think that is going to be reflected moving forward?
I think the piece of legislation is good. It's an improvement from the initial one.
Yes.
And I know this is not the last piece of controversy on IBC. It will continue to be improved over time and over generations. But I'll tell you this. My opinion is probably slightly pessimistic on that place. I say it because IBC has been a political tool of trade for those that are in power and those that are not in power. The reason is it's a gateway to power. It's what IBC says and pronounces that gives people seats or denies people seats. In fact, it is IBC that pronounces who a president is, who a governor is, and which political party then has more seats than the other. So it is everything democracy. IBC is the gateway upon which then a person gets the seat, whatever seat it is. And therefore it is where all eyes will go. I expect friction and tension at the time that we move into implementation. In fact, the harder part will be at implementation. The personality that gets scrutinized in many ways. The ethnicity, the ethnic background, his background, probably how he conformed himself to the political space on account of his pronouncements and where he's worked before. If you put the clergy themselves, they'll be looked at a clergy, for instance, a church that is domiciled much in Mount Kenya as opposed to Rift Valley, or Rift Valley as opposed to Mount Kenya or the coast. If you put engineers, he must be an engineer of a personality with a language, with an ethnic background. So if you put lawyers alone, you say Mudavadi is going to be the president. If you put Kikuyus alone, then it means Rigathi Gachagua probably has an advantage. If you put Kalenjins alone, then it'll be looked at as if the president is mounting himself in a certain way. If you put Luos alone, separated in accordance with the proximity to what will be a Luo beholden to in terms of the bias in elections experiences before, and that will be Raila Amolo Odinga. If you mix it, there'll be definitely a compromise of sorts even in that mix-up. In the last elections, it played out at the last minute, when we had a clique of rebels, or I would say rebellious commissioners to what will be ultimately the leadership of IBC. and that mix and match of sorts. That is democracy, because friction is part of democracy. In a sense, it's majoritarian and so on and so forth. But I want to put it this way, that the feeling of IBC will have a component of the 2027 elections. Therefore, we'll have an eye of that composition of 2027 elections in a skewed way, and the bias that could come from it. Yes. So to get an ideal as is prescribed in law is impossible in IBC because of how skewed it's going to be. Number two, IBC independence is a question you've asked before. IBC is independent on paper. It can't be independent in fact. On account of the fact it's beholden to funding. Funding comes from the executive. But again, it is oversighted by Parliament. Parliament that has its own problems in account of the person has, again, to go through a parliamentary process for purposes of debunking some of the issues in terms of appointment and even operationalization. Money allocated to IBC goes through Parliament, but I know the executive has a bigger hand. And Parliament will give IBC and deal with it on account of how it places itself in keeping with IBC. IBC itself want to conduct itself in a manner as to the environment as will subsist as at the time. For instance, right now, the antennas as to accountability are very high. So if these political decibels of Gen Z's lower a bit, we go back to where we were, the bad behavior of non-accountability. And remember, everybody would want to get into power in the next elections. You play it well with IBC, you get into power.
The energy is already there. I don't know what about you, Butisha.
What I want to point is that...
as you also respond to that, have you noticed that this is the first bill to be passed out of the report that came from the NADCO report?
Yes. In fact, I was coming there. Yes. That this bill is being signed today on the heels of a NADCO report where we had majority of the political parties participate, especially the opposition and government. They came up with recommendations. So in today's bill, we expect that those recommendations have been lifted from the report, the way they were, into that bill. That's number one. Number two, you know, we live in Kenya and in Africa. And at any point, those commissioners will be appointed to that body, will be seen, one, maybe because of a name, because of the name, you'll be seen to be biased with a certain presidential candidate. Because of profession, because of your ethnicity, because of where you come from originally, you'll be seen to be associated with a certain presidential candidate. A case in example is that in the last election, among the Cherera 4, there was a commissioner there who automatically, somebody would have thought that commissioner would be with the President William Ruto. But that commissioner was on the other side. So as Kenyans, we need probably Wakilis here. What would be the best way for us to have a commission that people will not look through the names, through the religion, through the region where you come from? Because at the end of the day, we need to have, these Kenyans.
Because we've not heard Azimio talk about it. Yes. Perhaps they also have that copy. I think they have that copy because we've not heard them speak. Last week, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka said that that bill should be signed into law.
Yes.
So perhaps there is something they know, of course. Have we not had this? Part of the recommendation, you correct me, is they wanted the constitution and the composition of that body to reflect from the church body, from the religious sector and all that.
Whatever composition you're going to have,
yes,
is going to have an interpretation by the analysts that so and so comes from this church and this presidential candidate.
Excuse me, an interpretation by what?
I'm saying whatever composition that we're going to have,
yes,
people will interpret it using different parameters.
Okay.
Either by name, either by church, either by the region where you come from. Will not really will not sit back and say this is the best commission that people are going to interpret it in different ways. So we should live with what we have and properly whatever has been going with Gen Z. Now even the independent commission, they know that they must deliver. Anything short of delivering, then they know that people can actually hold them to account personally.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay. Wakili, do you think it's going to cure the issues, the perennial kind of symptoms we should have during elections? Because you've said there's that foresight about 2027.
I think so. I think so because to satisfy a political outcome that is a democratic process is completely difficult. Remember, democracy in itself is folly. It prescribes that when we move into elections, we, as a community, divide ourselves into certain biases, certain fiefdoms of sorts. So there's nothing wrong with you voting a person because from your tribe. Nothing wrong in law. There's nothing wrong with voting a person because he gave you money. That completes the bias. There's nothing wrong with a person who helped you pay school fees for your daughter or son, and therefore you are beholden to him or her, and so on and so forth. We ordinarily put rules that probably limit or reduce the area of biases, but that's a very big fissure. Remember, in every community, there'll be areas of departure and fissures and separation. It could be religion. There are people who kill each other on account of religion. Even that one religion could have its own fiefdoms. It could be ethnicity. And our dominant question of fissure here and separation as a community is, as a Kenyan community, is ethnicity. And you break down the ethnicity element into clanism at times. And at times, in our villages, we have our own biases. Now, you will never miss that. And it's very important. In fact, there must be differences in society for us to run democracy. Because it is those differences that people are biased for one and against another that we have an outcome of a winner, a majoritarian aspect or outcome. Because of that, then, it means, therefore, that we have democracy prescribes that it must be wounding and healing. The society is divided, then it heals. Is divided, is healed, over processes until such a time that we can tolerate the separation, the wounding and the healing.
And the pain.
Yes. What we've done, therefore, is this, because we've accepted it, and I know it's a foreign concept, we were told, were conscripted into this foreign concept. This is what we need to do. I think we need to know that our differences now is ethnicity. How do we accommodate ourselves after after an election where there's perception? Not perception of an outcome. There's usually perception of loss.
I get it.
Those are two different things. Perception of an outcome is that this is what we went to do. Now this person is the MCA. This is the president. This is the women rep. And that's the outcome. When you say we lost, it is a grievance. And that grievance is emotive. It's emotion. And it's emotionalized in a sense that we take to the streets and we kill each other. Certainly. That is what the IABC needs to avoid. That it brings out an outcome of an election as opposed to a win and a loss.
Gentlemen, I have 2 minutes so that we wind up. Time imekimbia. All right. 2 questions. How are we going to exercise separation of power? Because now we have IABC, once it's assented to, now the formation of that commission is now a process that is going to be moving forward. So how are we going to have the separation of power between the executive, the 3 arms of government? That is question 1. Question 2, so how then are we going to have, because the delimitation and the review process, the boundaries is also something that is long overdue. Are we going to do it? Because right now it's long overdue. And as we move forward, election is also ahead of us. Because for the politicians, there's no time left. I know, Wakili, you know this one so far. Very quickly, because I have only 2 minutes.
I think the plate of IBC is full. Expect when the commissions come into place, they'll be able to move with speed. And I expect for them to be truly independent is that they are given their budgets to run their own budget without necessarily being given in small bits to control them. That Bunge passes that law to appropriate funds to the IBC so that they're able to run their own programs without any reference to anybody. Number 2, issue of separation of powers. I don't know, maybe in future we should come up with a law, because you see, once you are elected into parliament, you belong to a political party. The president also belongs to a political party. And most of the time, president will always consult his political party members of parliament for certain decisions to be made. How we're going to move into the future, I'm seeing a scenario whereby, I don't know, whether we can come up with a law once election is over, you are party list as a member of parliament so that you function independently. Because Bunge is supposed to be an oversight over executive, whether at a county level or at national level. But you find the 2 bodies working seamlessly together, not really for the benefit of the people, but to subvert some kind of constitutional things. And
donate your 1 minute to Wakili as
yes,
well.
yes, so that that's fine.
Thank you. Let me put it this way.
Kindly.
We have tried as a country. Honestly, we have. We've amended the law such that we've personalized crime to the person holding the office, so that if you commit a crime, as an admonishment against the commissioners, it goes personal to that commissioner. That one we have done. But maybe the threat is not there yet. You know, in this country, we have very good laws, I can tell you. I have gone to law school, I have practiced these laws, I have lived with these laws. We have very good laws. Implementation is a problem. But the second issue, again, is bad behavior, good behavior is personal. So that then if you become a commissioner, there is the higher calling and duty unto the people of Kenya, not to the people that have put you there. Because remember, again, there's the friction of whoever pays the paper calls the shots. You will be seconded to that position through a process, clergy, political party, and certain backgrounds. But when you get there, remember, you've gotten there on an environment of a very robust political settlements that have costed blood of people in this country over time until now, until the current protestations that we have. It is this. Kenyans, we must learn that if you are promoted into certain officialdom, you go there to deliver to the people of Kenya beholden in that office, and not unto a certain clique of people that in offices. The moment we learn that this election is for the people of Kenya, it doesn't matter whoever comes into office, deliver the outcome. Do not deliver a win for anyone.
Because the power,
deliver the outcome, because the sovereign power belongs to the people of
Gentlemen,
Kenya.
allow me to wind up. Time runs when you're having good time. I hope we are all men, we know this. When you're having a good time in some corner somewhere, time runs pretty fast. Asante sana for coming. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll be crossing over to Zinga, of course. Gharama ya matumizi, serikalini, that is a discussion that Rashid Mwamkondo will be driving there with David Alulu, who is an economic expert, as well as Honorable Steve Mogaka, who is Member of Parliament, West Mogirango. Butichi, asante sana, is an engineer.
Thank you.
And also political analyst, asante sana, Hamisi Butichi,
Thank
as
you.
well as Wakili George Kithi. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming. All right, so at 9 a.m., the president will be at the KICC. Actually, he's invited everybody from across the political divide, and I know that's what you've just said. It belongs to the people, and a majority of people who actually gave their concerns and their voices were the political parties from both sides, and even other stakeholders. All right, at 9, we'll be crossing over to KICC. My name is Victor. Have a good morning. Bye-bye.
Join me on a journey as we unlock the secrets of a healthier and vibrant youth. We'll also share real-life stories of courage and resilience. Plus, we provide practical health tips for living a healthy lifestyle, no matter what challenges you may face.
Are you a talented artist? Or are you passionate about a topic you want to discuss? But money can be very hard to find for an upcoming artist. Don't worry, Studio Mashinani has got your back. Sign up on ajira.co.ke to book a session with your music and video producers across the country. Work on your music, jingles, spoken words, and even podcasts to realize your dream. All for free. Studio Mashinani, Radani Talent.
I have never seen such a book of a contract, Yawa.
To make it worse, reading is not my strong suit. I just confirm the bay, alafu naweka kidole bahali yake.
That's true. That's correct. I am your counselor, and my name is Sir Nicholas.
Aye, kwani they didn't find anyone better? We don't utilize leftovers, you know.
That was very important, teacher. There, sir. You can proceed.
about you settle down and we get this lesson kicking?
Kicking who? Malimomba, in the way we don't have time for your jokes. With all due respect, get out.
I never heard the music so sweet. I repeat.
One more, me brethren, big things are going. Remember, each and every Monday we have to share down the place with nothing but the best of smooth way the vibes in your favorite station. You know these things, man.
Alafu kila Tuesday, kata simu tupo side, giving you Kenyan music from the 254.
And of course, you can spice up your Wednesday by enjoying blazing hot hip-hop and R&B jams.
We don't got no label. She say she want bottles.
Vibes and vibes as we go all across Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, all the way to Tanzania to give you nothing but the best on Afro Thursday. Make sure you make a date with us each and every single Friday with me, DJ_Liza Diva,
DJ Cold,
and me, Wanjiko. This is Club One Extra.
Unanifanya nisikie kunongwa Hadija ai Mani especially ukisonga.
On KBC Channel 1, we are a TV station like no other. Get a taste of the best in entertainment.
Yes, indeed.
Feel the passion.
Will you promise me?
I swear that you will never lose me. I can't get married to you.
I'm sure you knew about it. That's why you're making fun of me.
Experience the drama.
Get out.
Who is the man in this one? And the laughter. Move to the beat.
We are live from Broadcasting House.
And get informed on the latest happenings. KBC Channel 1.
Wow.
Yeah!
We are the full package.
Oh, yes.
And Kenya's watching.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Musikari Nazi Kombo was born on 13th March 1944. He attended Misiko Primary School, Nyeri High School for his A-levels, and Mumias High School for O-levels. He then joined the University of Nairobi, where he pursued a bachelor's degree in economics. In 1992, he was elected to Parliament on a Ford Kenya party ticket. He was elected Member of Parliament for Webuye constituency. He lost his parliamentary seat just 2 years into the job after he was found guilty of engaging in witchcraft. In a court ruling delivered on November 17, 1994 in Nairobi by Judges Emmanuel Okubasu, G.P. Mbito and John Mwera, Kombo was found guilty of administering traditional oaths to bind and instill fear in voters to elect him during the 1992
Mtazamaji wa KBC Channel 1 mahali popote ulipo, ni saa 2:09 saa za Afrika ya Mashariki. Mtazamaji, karibu sana kwenye kipindi Zinga kwa ushirikiano na GMK, kipindi ambacho kujia kila siku ya Jumanne kupitia redio na runinga. Ni kipindi cha kipekee mtazamaji, ambapo tunawaleta viongozi mbalimbali, tunawaleta wachanganuzi mbalimbali, tukiganga na kugangua masuala mbalimbali, ikiwemo ni masuala ya afya, masuala ya kiuchumi, masuala ya kisiasa na vile vile pia masuala mengi yanayoibuka yakiwemo ya hapa nchini, barani Afrika na kimataifa. Mtazamaji, kwa kipindi cha wiki 3 sasa, Kenya imekuwa katika hali ya mshike huku kukiwa na mijadala kuhusu hali ya uchumi wa taifa, usalama wa taifa na masuala ya Generation Z ama Gen Z. Siku ya Ijumaa mtazamaji, wiki iliyopita, historia iliandikwa kwa mara ya kwanza tangu kupatikana kwa uhuru mnamo wakati wa maandamano. Kabla ya mkutano huo, mpenzi mtazamaji wa Kenya, kwenye mtandao wa X, rais alitoa mikakati mbalimbali ambayo serikali ilipanga kuitumia ili kufadhili bajeti yake ya mwaka wa 2024-2025, haswa baada ya mswada wa fedha kuanguka. Baadhi ya mikakati mtazamaji ambayo serikali itatumia kufadhili bajeti ni pamoja na kupunguza matumizi ya serikali ya shilingi bilioni 177. Rais Ruto alitangaza kuwa mashirika 47 ya serikali yanayoonekana kufanya kazi zinazolingana yatavunjiliwa mbali. Mtazamaji, hii tu ni baadhi ya mikakati ya kupunguza matumizi serikalini. Hii leo mtazamaji, tumewaalika wachanganuzi kuangazia mikakati ya serikali katika kupunguza matumizi hayo. Wachanganuzi wetu ndani ya studio ni ndugu yangu David Alulu ambaye ni mchanganuzi wa masuala ya uchumi na kisiasa, na vile vile pia tunamtarajia mbunge wa Mogirango Magharibi ambaye ni mwakili na vile vile pia mwanauchumi, Mheshimiwa Steve Mogaka. Bwana Alulu, karibu sana kwenye kipindi asubuhi ya leo.
Asante sana Rashid.
Na labda tu tukifungua kipindi, Bwana Alulu, kumekuwa na mwamko mpya ambao Ijumaa wiki iliyopita Rais William Ruto katika aliweka historia kwamba alijumuika na Wakenya zaidi ya milioni 1 kwenye mtandao wa X ili kujibu maswali kadha kuhusu mustakabali wa taifa. Labda kabla kwenda mbele, ni nini maoni yako kuhusiana na tukio lile kwanza?
Nashukuru sana kwa fursa hii. Mwanzo ni umesema mswada wa finance bill ulianguka. Mswada wa finance bill haukuanguka. Finance bill ilipita. Lakini kwa sababu ya kuwa kwamba kumekuwa na maandamano ya Gen Z kupinga uhalali ama uhalisia wa ule mswada, nadhani rais akajipiga moyo konde. Akaona aweze kukubaliana na Wakenya wengi. Manake labda angeweka kidole, nchi ingeweza kujipata mahali pagumu sana. Kwa sababu mara nyingi maamuzi yanayofanywa unaweza yafanya labda kwa sababu ya kutaka kuwa kwamba wewe unajihisi wewe ndio kiongozi, lakini ikawa inasababisha taifa kuweza kuingia pabaya. Kwa hivyo nadhani kwa hekima ya rais, na nikizungumzia jambo ambalo melizungumzia, kwa hekima ya rais, nadhani rais ameona ni vizuri ukiweza, unajua kuna ule msemo amekuwa akisema Zakayo shuka. So nadhani Zakayo ameona ni vizuri ashuke. Kwa sababu kumekuwa na wakati wa maandamano tulikuwa tunaona ni kama filamu hivi. Watu wanapanda juu ya mti wanasema shuka ama tukuje tukushukishe. Shuka ama tukushukishe. Sasa Zakayo ni kama akaona nikingoja kushukishwa itakuwa vibaya. So akarudi chini kuweza kusikiliza wale watu ambao anaongoza. Na nadhani yafaa iwe ni jinsi ambavyo viongozi wa aina yote ile wanafaa kuwa wana behave. Manake wakati ambapo unaongoza watu, haufai kuwa uko juu sana kiwango kwamba wakikutaka hawakufiki. Nafaa uwe kiongozi ambayo kwa njia moja au nyingine wakati watu wanasema njoo tusemezane, unapatikana. Na kusikue na ile kujipiga kifua na kuonesha kwamba wewe ndio alfa na omega, wewe ndio ukisema mambo yote lazima, kila mtu lazima aabudu na ashangilie. Kwa hivyo nadhani kuja kwa rais kwenye hata mdahalo wa Express ilikuwa ni njia moja ya kuonesha wa Kenya kwamba jamani, mnaweza kuwa mnaniona kana kwa mimi niko juu sana, lakini nimenyenyekea. Nyinyi ndio waajiri wangu, nyinyi ndio wenye kusema. Na utaona kwamba baada ya rais kuchukua zile hatua ambazo alichukua mwanzo, kutoweka kidole ule bill, alafu pili kukubali kuja kwa Express, kwa sababu kabla ya rais kuja Express kulikuwa kumekuwa na mawasiliano kwamba hey, makundi ya vijana mjipange, mtume wawakilishi wenu waje tusemezana. Wakasema sisi hatuji State House, sisi tunataka wewe ukuje kwetu hapa Express, hapo ndio tunakutania. Na kwa sababu ya kuwa kiongozi, na mimi kibinafsi nadhani natoa heshima kwa rais wetu, kwa sababu ameonesha kwamba sio Kenya peke yake, bali kwa mataifa ya Afrika yote, kwamba yawezekana hata kama ni rais, yawezekana ukaweza kusemezana na wale watu ambao wanaongoza. Isiyo kwamba tunawaona tu viongozi wakati wa campaign ndio wanaweza kuja wakasalimiana wananchi, wakakunywa chai kwenye vibanda, wakapiga picha na kila mtu. Wakati ambapo tunapata viongozi wanaweza keti chini, waweze kusikiza watu, wasikie. Nilikuwa nafuatilia ule mjadala na kijana mmoja akasema sitaki kuzungumzia kama rais, nataka kuzungumzia kama Baba Shalin. Na akasikiza tu na mwisho akatoa majibu. Kwa hivyo mimi naona it is a new trend, lakini a positive one, kwa sababu sasa Wakenya wana ile imani kwamba huyu kiongozi tutaka kumuongelesha atatusikiza. Tukitaka kusemezana naye mambo tunayasema anayasikiza. Kwa hivyo whether or not unamsupport Rais Ruto, lakini ni vizuri kukubali kwamba huyu kiongozi amekubali kuwa na ile hali ya kunyenyekea, ambapo ni jambo la busara na jambo la hekima kwa kiongozi wa aina yote yule. Kiongozi hata wa kifamilia, kiongozi wa kibiashara, kampuni, na hata wabunge wetu wakuwe na ile hali ya kuweza kusikiza watu wanasema nini. Ile wakati wa kampeni kuna msemo walikuwa wanasema ground inasemaje. Lazima usikize ground
kweli. Kuna wale ambao wanasema ni tactic tu, rais aliweza kuitulia kuwatuliza wale vijana. Sio nakubaliana na swala hili, sababu kuna wengine wanasema kwamba baada ya profesa wa siasa marehemu Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi kuondoka, wengi wana itikadi kwamba profesa mwingine wa siasa ni Rais William Ruto.
Wajua hii siasa ina ile tunasema kwa Kiingereza very interesting. Na the interest ya siasa inakuwa kwamba wakati ambapo sababu uko kwenye space ambayo uko na watu wanakushabikia, na kuna wale watu wanakupinga ambao kwa kila jambo ambalo unalifanya hawaoni jema lolote. Kwa hivyo sitaki kusema kwamba ni tactic ya kutuliza, nataka kuamini kwamba ni uongozi. Rais alionyesha uongozi. Alionyesha uongozi kwanza kabisa kwa kukubali kwamba ukiona siku ya kwanza baada tarehe 25 baada ya yale maafa yalitokea na vituko vyote ambavyo vilifanyika, speech ya kwanza rais alitoa kwenye hotuba ya kitaifa, alikuwa na machungu sana. Alionekana kuwa amekasirika sana, na angepata uwezo wa kushika wale ambao walikuwa wamefanya yale mambo, nadhani angewachapa viboko. Lakini baadaye nadhani baada ya kurudi faragani na kufanya ile tunasema soul searching, nadhani akaelewa the only way, kwa sababu mataifa mengi ambayo yameharibika bila kutaja taifa lolote, itakuwa ni kwamba viongozi baada ya mambo haya kama haya kuanza, viongozi walitumia lazima kujaribu kushusha ile temperature. Lakini sasa yeye akachukua mkondo mwingine kwamba nisitumie kifua, wacha niende nisikize lugha ya wale watu ambao wanazungumza lugha gani na wanasemaje. So kama ni njia au mbinu yake yeye kutuliza joto la kisiasa na mambo ambayo yalikuwa yanaendelea, then nadhani hiyo mbinu yake ni nzuri, inafanya kazi, kwa sababu hata wale ambao walikuwa wakiandamana, ukisikia hata tone kwa mitandao na wale watu wengi ambao wamezungumza, wanasema rais tumemzungumzia, amesikia, tumpe nafasi atekeleze. Kwa hivyo kama watu wengi wanaona kwamba apewe nafasi ya kutekeleza, inamaanisha ile tactic yake imefanya kazi. Na nadhani viongozi wengi wa Kiafrika wanabidi kuchukua somo kiasi kupitia ile action ya Rais Ruto, kwamba sio lazima utumie kifua, sio lazima utumie asasi za kiusalama, vyombo vya kutumia nguvu ili kuweza kuonesha kwamba wewe ndio kiongozi, kwa sababu said and done. Utajua kwamba siasa zetu za kidemokrasia, hakuna rais anaweza kujiweka pale ofisini mwenyewe kwa lazima baada ya miaka 5 rais atarudi kwa watu kuomba nafasi tena ya uongozi. So kama kiongozi yoyote yule ambaye anataka nafasi nyingine, lazima atafute mbinu ya kuweza kwanza, sababu Rais Ruto atajukumikaje mbele ya watu baada ya miaka 5 kama itakuwa kwamba awamu yake ya kwanza alishindwa kuweza kustahimili joto la kisiasa na mambo mengi ambayo yalikuwa yanatokea, kama hasira zake zilikuwa zinapanda kila wakati. Tunataka kiongozi ambaye licha ya kuwa yeye ni mwanadamu ana ruhusa ya kukasirika, lakini pia awe na jinsi ya kuweza kucontrol hasira zake. Na sasa nadhani kwa kiwango hicho cha kuweza kujitokeza, kwenda kunyenyekea, kwenda kwa wale vijana na kuzungumza na wao na kusikiza maoni yao ni yapi, nadhani amedhihirisha kwamba licha ya kuwa yeye ni mwanadamu anaweza kuwa na udhaifu wa kiasira ama mambo mengi, lakini pia ni mtiivu wa kusikiza. Maana yake kila kiongozi lazima asikize. Na kama hauna nia ya kusikiza, then hauna haja. Rais mstaafu Kibaki alikuwa anasema hauna haja ya kuwa mahali pale, sababu utakuwa wewe ni mtu bure kabisa.
Utakuwa ni baadhi ya kuku. Lakini Bwana Lulu, mahali unapokaa kwa sasa, wengi walifuatilia ule mdahalo ambao kwa kweli rais aliscore, kwa sababu hadhi yake na mdahalo kwenye Express, si viongozi wengi barani Afrika ambao wanaweza, labda tu wale viongozi wa kizunguzungu. Lakini mahali unapokaa Bwana Lulu, unahisi kwamba rais alijibu maswali ya wale vijana inavyostahili?
Mwanzo hata mimi mwenyewe nilikuwa na hofu wakati rais alisema nimekubali kukutana na vijana Express. Nilikuwa na wasiwasi. Hofu yangu ya kwanza ilikuwa ndio, lakini sasa unaona anaenda kusemezana na watu ambao hawajui, haujui ni nani. Unajua inaweza kuwa ni mtu ambaye anakujua, lakini sasa amejificha kwa ile kitu sukumia makombora ambaye hawajai kutana naye. Amekuwa akitafuta mbinu ya kuweza kupin down. So nilikuwa na hofu, lakini jinsi kama alivyokubali na akaweza kukuwa na hali ya kuweza kucontrol emotions na kucontrol mambo yote ambayo yalikuwa yanafanyika, nikifikiria mambo ambayo yalikuwa yanaenda kwa mawazo yake na matamshi mengine ambayo yalikuwa yanajitokeza pale, sababu nilisikiza kuanzia mwanzo hadi mwisho, na kuna matamshi yalikuwa yanakuja wakati mwingine unaona hapa hii mambo imechemka, lakini aliweza kuyasikiza. So mimi nadhani kama kiongozi Rais Ruto aliweza kuwajibikia maswala ambayo yaliletwa kwake kama kiongozi. Manake kutarajia kwa vyote vile rais kuweza kupandwa na ghadhabu wakati ataambiwa mambo ambayo yanaudhi na aweze kujibu kwa hasira. Kwa vyote vile kuna wakati hata ilikuwa ni kana kwamba mitambo zinazimika, anabaki anauliza bado tuko wote hewani ama niko peke yangu, kwa sababu amekuja pale kwa manufaa ya kuweza kuwasikiza wale ambao ni wenyeji wake ambao ni vijana. Kwa hivyo mimi kwa score yangu nadhani alijaribu kadri ya uwezo wake kama kiongozi, na kama jinsi ambavyo ulisema, it is a very unfamiliar environment. Hapa sio mahali pale tumezoea.
Hakuna ethics.
Hakuna na mtu anaweza kuambia chochote. Na wajua most of the times tumekuwa tukijaribu kuassess the level of damage ambayo ilitokea wakati wa maandamano. Na utakuta nini ambacho kimefanya viongozi wengi wa tone down, kwa sababu kulikuja kaonekana kana kwamba jinsi unavyozungumza zaidi ndivyo unawaudhi wale vijana, na wengi wao hawana lolote. So mtu ambaye hajawahi nunua gari, ukimwambia choma ili gari na kiberiti ya shilingi 5 na petroli ya shilingi 50, atawakisha moto na haimuumi chochote kwa sababu hana. So kwa vyovyote vile unakuta kwamba wakati ambapo umewekwa kwa nafasi ya kuwa kwamba una mamlaka kama uwezo wa kuweza kucontrol situations, yabidi utumie hekima. Hekima ni jambo la busara sana. Hekima maana yake ni kwamba hata ukiniudhi Bwana Rashid, na kwa sababu ya heshima ya watazamaji wetu na wasikilizaji wasikilizaji wetu, sifai kuanza kukutusi ili nionyeshane kwamba emotions zangu zimepanda sasa. Hekima ni kwamba licha ya kuwa utapanda juu nishuke mimi, ili mwishowe tupate common ground, mahali ambapo tunaweza semezana, tuweze kusuluhisha matatizo ambayo yanapatikana. Kuna jambo alisema rais, wakati mtu mmoja alisema fire all your cabinet, fukuza hawa watu wote. Alijibu kwa hekima akisema, nyinyi wote, none of you ako kwenye sehemu nilio. Mimi where I am, hakuna mtu anajua niko namna gani. So nikachukua muda kuweza kutafakari. Unajua wengi wa wale watu ambao rais anafanya nao hawajatoka kwa space. Ni watu wamekuwa naye. Ni watu walimsaidia kutafuta hii serikali. Rais Ruto hakupata serikali peke yake. Kuna watu walimsaidia kwa kuomba kura, kwa kuchangisha hata pesa ya campaign, rasilimali zao, muda wao. Kwa hivyo inakuwa ni vigumu sana. Ni kwa mfano mimi nimeshughulika kutafuta mali na mke wangu. Alafu ikifika mahali wakati mambo imekuwa mazuri, uniambie bwana Lulu, unajua mke wako hakai mzuri sana, huyu itabidi umemtoa, huyu amekonda, toa yeye utafute mwingine mnene. Sasa unaona itakuwa tatizo kidogo. Lazima sasa niombe hekima ya hali ya juu sana kuweza kukabiliana na hilo jambo. Kwa hivyo nadhani mimi rais alijaribu kadri ya uwezo wake, tumpe eko, give credit where it is due. Hiyo ilikuwa a very unfamiliar environment. Hata kama ni mimi ningekuwa pale, I'm sure ningekuwa na changamoto kidogo, sababu huwa tunajikuta kwa emotions. Kwa sababu ni binadamu. Na ukisikiza some of the words ambazo zilikuwa zinasema pale na vijana wengine, unasikia kabisa huyu jinsi anaongea anahitaji some sort of controlling. Lakini ni sawa, kwa sababu tumejileta hapo, inabidi tunyenyekee, tushuke kwenye ile level, tumalizana na hiyo chapter so that we can move to another chapter. Kwa hivyo mimi nadhani alijaribu.
Bila shaka msikilizaji, 2:25, 2:30 nitakuwa nachukua mapumziko mafupi, lakini nikirudi kwako ndugu Alulu, rais kuna mabadiliko ambayo ameyafanya mbalimbali. Miongoni mwa mabadiliko alisema kwamba yale masuala ya makatibu waandamizi, yani chief administrative secretaries, ataiondolea mbali, na vile vile pia bajeti ama mgao katika afisi ya mama wa taifa, na vile vile pia mke wa naibu rais ataiondolea mbali, na vile vile pia amezungumzia kuhusiana kupunguzwa kwa hizi safari za mawaziri ama viongozi wake nje ya nchi. Labda unahisi ni wakati ambapo umefika rais kufanya mabadiliko zaidi, ama yale mabadiliko ambayo yatangaza yanatosha kukidhia mahitaji ya wale vijana pamoja na Wakenya kwa ujumla?
Mwanzo kabisa nadhani ni jambo la busara kwamba rais amechukua hatua ya kuweza kukata bajeti hasa kwa ofisi yake, that is presidency. Na hasa jinsi ambavyo amesema wale walikuwa wapewe nafasi za CS zinaondolewa, zinakuwa suspended. Lakini ni vizuri kusema ukweli. Sidhani budget ambayo inatumia kwa ofisi ya mke wa rais kwa mfano ni budget ambayo inaweza fanya taifa la Kenya likakosa kuendelea kimaendeleo. Kuna vitu tofauti sana ambavyo vinaweza fanyika ambavyo vinaweza kutuokoa kama nchi. Napenda sana kutumia mfano wa aliyekuwa rais wa Tanzania mwenda zake Mheshimiwa Magufuli. Magufuli alipokuja kwenye ofisi kama rais wa Tanzania, kuna vitu alifanya, radical changes on austerity measures. Jambo la kwanza, Magufuli alisema, wewe mfanyikazi wa serikali, kwenye ofisi yako kuna boardroom, kwenye ofisi yako kuna PowerPoint, kuna kila kitu ambayo unahitaji kufanya mkutano. Kwa nini unapanda gari au ndege kuondoka kwenye ofisi lako kwenda hotelini kufanya mkutano? Tulipe hoteli, tukulipe wewe per diem, tukulipe traveling allowance, tukulipe hizi vitu zote ambazo tunaweza tukazuia hizo pesa zikafanya mambo mengine. Kwa hivyo mimi nadhani kwa serikali kuna vitu ambavyo vinahitajika kufanyika ili kuweza kuokoa mwananchi wa kawaida. Tatizo sio mama wa taifa, tatizo sio mke wa naibu wa rais, tatizo ni kwamba viongozi wengi wa serikali wanaharibu mali ya rasilimali za umma. Kwa njia ipi? Mimi kuna mali ambapo nimewahi enda nikakuta watu wana sign kwamba wameenda safari ya siku 10, siku 15 na huyo mtu hajatoka hapo, hajatoka ofisini mwake. Yeye alienda ghost spirit yake ilienda mahali kwa mkutano na ikarudi na akasaini pesa na akaenda na hizo pesa na akazitumia kufanya mambo yake. Kwa hivyo kuna expenditures ambazo zinafanywa kwa ofisi za serikali ambazo zafaa kuchunguzwa na ziweze kuondolewa ili rasilimali za mwananchi zikaweze kutunzwa. Namba 2, wakati ambapo unapata msafara wa rais kwa mfano, acha nitumie tu sasa msafara wa rais. Rais akiwa anasindikishwa na msafara wa magari 150 au magari 200 na rais anaenda kuhutubia mkutano kwa 1 hour. Unaona hiyo gharama ambayo inatumika kwenye msafara wa rais ni mamilioni ya pesa. Ati rais akiondoka Nairobi aende Murang'a ama aende Nakuru, hiyo siku milioni 200 zinaisha. Na ni kitu ambacho kinaweza kufanywa na watu wachache na tukawa tumeokoa pesa ama rasilimali za mwananchi. Kwa hivyo kiwango cha pesa ambazo zinatumiwa kwa vitu vidogo vidogo. Magufuli, nilikuwa natumia mfano wa Magufuli kuna wakati alisuspend hata sherehe za kitaifa. Akasema hizi sherehe za kitaifa zinatuharibia pesa, tunaweza tumia hizo pesa kutengeneza ile barabara ya BRT. Akaweka zile mabasi za BRT Dar es Salaam. Sasa ukienda Dar es Salaam kuna ile mabasi mazuri tu, mwendo kasi. Nimeenda Dar es Salaam nikafurahia kabisa kule. Kiwango cha Dar es Salaam na Nairobi havikaribiani, lakini kitu ambacho kinafanya Dar es Salaam ikuwe very unique, BRT buses ambazo zinasaidia umma kwa kurahisisha ile usafiri wa umma. Kwa hivyo wakati ambapo kiongozi ataangalia vitu ambavyo ni vya kimsingi ambavyo vinaweza kutusaidia kuokoa rasilimali zetu, hapo ndipo tutaweza kuokoa rasilimali kama taifa. Kwa hivyo mimi nadhani kuna nia ya...
Shikilia tu hapo kidogo Lulu, shikilia hapo kidogo. Mtazamaji, naarifiwa kwamba tuchukue mapumziko mafupi upande wa runinga, lakini bado tunaendelea na kipindi upande wa redio. Tunachukua pumziko fupi tu, tutarudi. Mtazamaji, endapo ndo kwa sasa unafungua runinga yako ya KBC Channel 1, kipindi hewani ni Zinga na GMK, na studioni niko na mchanganuzi wa masuala ya kisiasa na uchumi Lulu. Bado mbunge wa Mugirango Magharibi Bwana Steve Mogaka hajaonekana, lakini atakapoingia tutasonga mbele. Kumbuka leo ni Ijumaa. Ijumaa siku zote mtazamaji na msikilizaji wanakuambia unamnunua Dora Manya kwa bei ghali, alafu unampata Rashid Mwamkondo bure. Kwa hiyo pumziko fupi kwenye runinga, redio tunaendelea. Tuendelee bwana.
Thank you for joining us on Healthy Living. Stay connected to Voice of America at voanews.com. A look at your kidneys and how they impact your health. And an expert discusses chronic kidney disease and how to protect yourself. And Ivorian psychologist Noor Bakayoko shares some insights on bullying and what can be done.
It's important to avoid major events or major health crises.
How do you know if your cough is due to a serious condition? We'll have some answers. Stay well
and strive to make every day a healthy day.
Atapunguza mambo ya mikutano mingi kwa mahoteli, atapunguza, na wakasema wanataka kutumia maeneo ambayo yako kwenye majumba ya serikali kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba wanapunguza gharama ya mikutano na vitu vingine. Lakini surprisingly rais alianza kwenda retreat ya mawaziri wake na nyuki. wakati huo walienda mawaziri na ma-PS walienda retreat, wakakaa kule siku kadhaa. Ukifata budget ya pesa ambazo zilitumika, ni vile huwa hatupewi budget kiwango kamili ambayo imetumika, ilikuwa ni pesa mingi. Baadaye juzi rais alikuwa Naivasha pia na retreat nyingine ya mawaziri na governors and everything else. Bado utaona kwamba hizo ni pesa mingi ambazo zimetumika. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri iwapo serikali inaweza kuzingatia kuzungumza jambo na iweze kufuatilia, kuhakikisha kwa kulitilia manani, kuhakikisha kwamba yale mambo yanafanyika. Isiyo kwamba yanazungumzwa kufurahisha wasikilizaji, alafu mwisho wa siku milango zinapofungwa, kamera zinapoondolewa, maisha yanakuwa ni yale yale. Manake asijui ukweli wake, lakini tumekuwa tukisikia fununu kwamba hata wale watu walikuwa wameteuliwa kama CAS, kuna wale wamekuwa wakipata mshahara, wanafanya vituko, wanaenda wanapata kitu, wanakula kwa serikali. So huku kwa umma tumeambiwa hakuna jambo linaendelea, lakini mle ndani wenyewe wanajua kuna kitu ambacho kinaendelea. Kwa hivyo nadhani tatizo ambalo tuko nalo Kenya, viongozi wetu hawasemi ukweli. Na kama tunaweza kuwa tuna hali ambapo serikali kuanzia kwa ofisi ya rais kwenda kwa mawaziri, viongozi wote, hata wabunge, iwapo tunaweza kusema ukweli, tusikuwe tunazungumza kufurahisha watazamaji, tusikuwe tunakuwa excited wakati kamera iko mbele yetu, wakati kamera inaondolewa tunarudi pale pale mahali ambapo tulikuwa na kuweza kuharibu jinsi ambavyo tulikuwa tunaharibu, lakini sasa kwa siri. Mkenya mmoja akasema wakati wa maandamano, tunapenda sana kabla ya kuletewa finance bill nyingine, serikali ituletee report, ituambie kwamba kila kampuni, kila shirika huwa linafanya makadirio yake, alafu mwisho wa mwaka wanatupatia ripoti yake jinsi ambavyo walifanya matumizi yao. Sisi pia kama Wakenya tungependa tuwe na ripoti ambayo inatuonesha kwamba jamani, tulikuwa na budget ya trilioni 3 na tuliweza hata kuokota trilioni 3.5. Hivi ndivyo tumefanya, aidha tumebakisha kidogo ambayo tuna carry forward, ama tuko na madeni kiwango hiki ambayo tuna carry forward. So watu wakuwe na ufahamu wa nini hasa kinaendelea kwa nchi, kwa sababu nadhani tatizo kubwa tumekuwa nalo taifa letu la Kenya na hasa serikali inaficha sana information ikuja kwa expenditures. Wanazungumzia sana wakati wanataka kuokota pesa, makadirio, tunataka hivi, tunataka vile, lakini wakishapata matumizi hawasemi tumetumia hivi kufanya vile na vile, wanabaki wamenyamazia hiyo habari. Ndipo unaona wakati ambapo vijana na by extension nadhani ni Wakenya wote, ni vile sasa vijana walipata courage ya kuweza kutoka na kuzungumza. Kweli watu wana hasira. Hasira ni kwamba ndio nimekupa rasilimali, nimekupatia resources, lakini zimefanya nini? Wakati ambapo umechukua hizi pesa ukasema unaenda kufanya hili na lile, nionyesha kwamba kwa kweli umelifanya. Usije kuniambia mara tulianza tukafika mahali tumepanga itakuwa namna hivi, alafu mwisho wa siku mambo yanakosa kufanyika.
Unanikumbusha kitu, rais alikuja na mpango mzuri wa kuweza kuwakopesha vijana Hustler Fund. Lakini jana nadhani uliona yaliyotokea. Mkaguzi wa serikali mkuu Binansi Gavungo anasema shilingi bilioni 10.9 hazijulikani ziko wapi. Ndio masuala ambayo tunayazungumza, lakini tuachane na hilo, ni la siku nyingine. Ndugu yangu Walulu, hii mikakati ambayo imewekwa na rais kupunguza matumizi serikalini, wewe ni mwanauchumi, unahisi kwa njia moja ama nyingine itasaidia kukwamua uchumi wetu?
Mikakati ni mizuri, inaweza kusaidia. Changamoto ni kwamba tunapewa tu mikakati, lakini hawazingatii kuhakikisha kwamba hizo mikakati zinafanya kazi. So tatizo ambayo tuko na jambo nimezungumzia ni kwamba ni rahisi sana kusema kwamba tumepanga, tutafanya, tunaenda. Ni rahisi sana. Lakini kutekeleza, utekelezaji, kwa mfano, tangu siku ya kwanza hadi leo nimekuwa nikijiuliza, tulipata ofisi ya spouse to the prime cabinet secretary. Swali ambalo kila Mkenya anajiuliza, mimi nikiwemo, kazi ya mke wa prime cabinet secretary kwa taifa la Kenya ni kama nini sasa? Kwa sababu kama itakuwa ni prime cabinet secretary, atakuwa mke wake atakuwa na ofisi, kesho tutaambiwa mawaziri pia spouses wao wanapata maofisi ya kufanya kazi fulani. Kesho kutwa tutaambiwa sasa hata wabunge wake zao sasa ni first ladies of constituencies wamepewa budget. Na mwisho wa siku utakuta Kenya ni kitu ya familia kufanya this and do that and that. Austerity measures ambazo serikali inaweka inaweza kuokoa rasilimali nyingi sana kwa taifa. Lakini tatizo ambayo tuko nalo na nia njema sana, lakini watu wanaofanya kazi na wao hawana nia njema, hawana nia ya kumsaidia kuhakikisha kwamba mipangilio anazoweka za kuweza kuokoa rasilimali za nchi zinatimia. Wengi hawana hiyo nia. Shida ambayo tumepata Kenya na Mungu atusaidie kwa hili, ni wakati ambapo watu wanapata nafasi za uongozi, inakuwa ni kana kwamba wamepata nafasi ya kuweza kupora. Yani nimepata opportunity, sasa wacha nichukue magunia niweze kuweka kila kitu ndani, nikitoka nitoke na kila kitu kimemalizika. Ndipo utaona mashirika mengi ya serikali yanafilisika kila mwaka kwa sababu wale watu ambao wamepewa nafasi wanakuwa na nia fiche, wanakuwa na agenda mbaya, wanakuwa na mipango za kuharibu, kuiba. Yani kila mtu anataka aonekane kwamba yeye ndio mfalme, yeye ndio anatosheka kwa community mzima. Kwa hivyo nadhani kile ambacho tunahitaji kama wa Kenya na kama jinsi generation Z wamesema na wamejitokeza wakaanza kuzungumza, ni wakati sasa tuanze kuwa na a very serious conversation kama taifa. Conversation ambayo tunahitaji ni wapiga kura waanze kujiuliza, wakati ambapo unaenda kwenye debe kumpigia kiongozi wako kura, unampigia kwa sababu amequalify, unampigia kwa sababu anatosha kuweza kusimamia rasilimali zako, ama unampigia kwa sababu amekupatia ongo? Kwa sababu wengi wa viongozi ambao wamechaguliwa kuanzia ofisi ya rais mpaka kwa MCA, wengi wanatembea na pesa wakati ambapo wanaomba kura. In other words, wananunua watu kuwapigia kura. Kwa hivyo mimi iwapo nitakuja nikununue ili unipatie favor, nitakapopata hiyo nafasi nataka kujilipa madeni yangu. So unajikuta kwamba viongozi wetu wengi ambao wameingia kwa ofisi kupitia njia za kiufisadi, ambapo walionga wapiga kura, wakati wa kupiga kura pale kwa foleni kuna mtu anapeana 200 enda pigia fulani. Kwa hivyo wakati ambapo kama wa Kenya tutatoka kwenye lile shimo la kutaka kupewa kitu kidogo ndio tufanye maamuzi yetu ya kimsingi, hapo tutapata viongozi watakao tusaidia kwa ajili ama kwa minajili ya kuweza kukua wa makinifu. Tunapozungumzia kutunza rasilimali za taifa, watakuwa na uwezo wa kuweza kuzungumza kwa ukweli, sio kuzungumza kwa sababu ya kuwafurahisha watazamaji na wasikilizaji, lakini kwa sababu huo ndio ukweli, na nchi na rasilimali zake lazima zilindwe na zihifadhiwe kiwango kikubwa. Lakini as it is now, tuko na tatizo kwa sababu wengi, asilimia kubwa ya viongozi wetu, nimewasikia viongozi wale wa upinzani wakisema sisi sasa ndio wazuri kwa sababu tulipiga no kwa mjadala wa finance bill. Lakini ukweli ni kwamba hakuna aliye mzuri na hakuna aliye mchafu. Wale viongozi wetu wote sura zao ni moja, lugha yao ni moja, nia yao ni moja. Wanapoingia kule bungeni, wakiwa kwenye zile ofisi zao, wanapofanya majadiliano ya kupata tenders na biashara ambazo ziko kwa serikali, wote ni marafiki. Wote wana favor one another. Wakati wanatoa kamera ndio kila mtu anaanza kuzungumza kwa mimi niko upande wa watu, mimi niko upande wa ile, na mwisho wa siku tunajipata tukiwa kwenye issue ambayo itatusaidia kusimamisha uchumi wetu na kuhakikisha kwamba tunaokoa pesa zetu kutokana na wastage, vitu ambavyo hazina umuhimu wowote lakini zinafanyika kwa kiwango kingine ambacho hakitusaidii. Waziri Moses Kuria akasema moja wapo wa vitu ambazo tunafaa tuondoe kama taifa, tuondoe culture ya kuweza kuwa kwamba tunaweka maua ofisini, tunaweka sijui maandazi ofisini, tunaweka sijui nini ifanywe kwa ofisini. Kama mtu ako na uwezo wa kupata mshahara wake, apange vitu ambavyo atakula. Kama anataka keki, akitaka hata chocolate anunua, beba aenda jaza ofisini kwake. Lakini rasilimali za umma zilindwe, zihifadhiwe, ili mwisho wa siku nchi ya Kenya ikaweze kuendelea mbele. Kenya is a very rich country, tuko na rasilimali nyingi sana, lakini wezi na wale wanafiki na walafi ambao wamepata nafasi ndio wanatuharibia nchi, na ndipo unaona tuko mahali ambapo tuko sasa hivi.
Saa 3 bado dakika 18, msikilizaji unaendelea kusikiliza KBC Radio Taifa, sauti ni Mkenya, kipindi hewani ni Zinga. Na kwa sasa labda tu nivuke upande wa pili ambapo mwenzangu Dora Manya yuko. Tuchukue simu 2-3 tusikilize, je, maoni ya wasikilizaji nao wanasema nini katika mjadala huu ambao tunaendelea nao hapa. Msikilizaji, hii ni KBC Radio Taifa, sauti ni Mkenya. Saa 3 bado dakika 18, kipindi hewani ni Zinga. Upande huu ni Rashid Mkondo na David Alulu, upande mwingine ni mwenzangu Dora Manye. Dora, endapo unanisikia labda tuchukue simu 2-3 tumshirikishe msikilizaji kwenye mjadala huu.
Naam, shukran sana Rashid upande wa pili na bwana David Alulu. Msikilizaji, nafasi ni yako, nipokee simu chache kupitia 0700176699 au 0732745111. Kumbuka ninavyosisitiza pia siku zote unapopiga simu yako pia hakisha kwamba angalau unatumia lugha heshima, itakuwa vizuri. Radio Taifa KBC.
Jambo Darabanya.
Si jambo.
Ndio mara baba saina kutoka Lesos na Dikaondi.
Naam.
Wacha kwanza nipongeze Murkomen. Jana aliongea vizuri kama wangekuwa wakiongea namna hiyo pili ingepita. Lakini kuna swali langu nikapenda kuuliza. Rais anapoenda nchi za Amerika, nchi za Uingereza, huwa anapata maswali mazito. Kwa nini akiwa nchini Kenya, yeye mwenyewe hataki maswali mazito ama wale wanaouliza hawataki kuuliza yeye maswali mazito? Hongera rais kwa kuongea vijana yako. Shukrani.
Asante. Radio Taifa KBC.
Hello, Radio Taifa KBC.
Naam.
Sasa mimi nataka kuanzia mchango.
Unaitwa nani kutoka wapi?
Iko kitu moja iko Kenya tumezoea. Na mimi ni mzee. Tumefanya hivi. Halo?
Nakusikiza.
Ile kitu iko. Hii watu tunachagua wanachaguliwa juu ya pesa. Hawachaguliwi juu ya kuwa wasaidizi wa wananchi wa Kenya. Sababu ni wanyama kabisa. Ukiangalia vile walifanya hii mjado ya pesa, walikuwa wanataka tubo zao zijae, wa Kenya waishe. Ukiangalia masomo ni bure, health ni bure, barabara hakuna. Sasa tunaambia zinaenda barabara gani? Ukienda kama kwetu Nyahururu, kuna barabara imejengwa kutoka Nyahururu kutoka Rumuruki. In fact contractor haijamaliza mwaka na imeisha.
Swali lako.
Sasa tungefanya nini? Hii watu waondoke, hii bunge ifuje, tuchaguane. Hiyo ndio sababu yangu mimi.
Asante, shukrani zaidi. Radio Taifa.
Halo KBC.
Yes.
Mohamed Dawa bwana, swali langu, katiba ndio mwongozo wa nchi. Sasa je, tuongozwe na maandamano iwe ndio katiba Kenya au ni kuifuata katiba? Aniambie bwana mchanganuzi huo, ni maandamano yenye kutuongoza au ni katiba? Mohamed Dawa Kipini bwana, shukrani.
Asante Mohamed Dawa kutoka Kipini. Nitaongeza simu moja alafu turudi kwako Rashid na bwana David Alulu, tuendelee na mjadala huu. Sawa sawa. 0700176699 0732745111 nambari zangu za hapa studioni. Radio Taifa KBC. Okay, huyo akanyamaza. Labda nirudi kwako Rashid kwanza, baadaye tunaweza rejea. Ama nishikie hii moja. Radio Taifa.
Taifa.
Yes sir.
Habari ya leo?
Salama.
Taramanya, kwa maoni yangu.
Unaitwa nani, uko wapi?
Mimi Doroli Tevi, kale kutoka shule tatu pale Kaunti. Kwa maoni yangu Tara. Kama rais angezingatia maneno amesema kweli, tutaona kama ametusaidia, lakini kama anasema tu lakini hakufanya, tutakuwa na imani kwake.
Asante.
So maoni yangu nayo.
Asante. Hoja ya kusema na kutenda, Rashid.
Naam, asante sana msikilizaji. Saa 3 bado dakika 14 saa za Afrika Mashariki. Ni KBC Radio Taifa, sauti ni Mkenya, kipindi wani ni Zinga studioni. Niko naye mchanganuzi wa masuala ya kisiasa na kiuchumi bwana David Alulu, tukiweza kuangalia msikilizaji gharama ya matumizi serikalini na mikakati ambayo rais ameweza kuifanya. Bwana Alulu, nadhani maswali umeweza kuyasikia. Alianza Omar kutoka kule Lesos Nandi, ambapo anasema rais akiwa nje huwa anapata maswali mazito, lakini akiwa hapa nchini hapati maswali. Sasa anauliza ni yeye huwa hataki ama wanaomuuliza ndio watatizo?
Well, nadhani maswali inategemea ni mazingira yapi uko ndani yake na anayekuuliza anataka kuuliza nini. Maswali ambayo labda anaulizwa akiwa upande wa kule nje, anaulizwa kwa sababu wale wa kule nje kuna vitu ambavyo wameona kwa uzito huo, wanampatia hayo maswali kwa uzito huo. Na hapa nchini nadhani mara ya mwisho rais alikuwa na kikao na media houses, wanahabari. Niliona at some point akiulizwa maswali mengine hadi mimi nilikuwa natazama, lakini na feel kabisa hii rais amefinywa kweli. Lakini anajibu. Kwa hivyo inategemea, unajua yawezekana nchi zingine matamshi ya wale wanauliza maswali yanakuja na jambo ambalo nakaa kama kukoseana heshima, kitu kama hicho. Lakini unajua nchi ya Kenya, sisi wengi wetu wakati tulikuwa tunakuza tulikuwa tunaambiwa kiongozi ukimsalimia umeshika mkono hivi. Ukiuliza swali uliza na utaratibu. Kwa hivyo kama sisi tuna zile foundations za kiheshima, sio makosa kuwa na heshima na sio utumwa kuwa na heshima.
Kuna bwana mmoja kutoka Nyahururu, jina lake hakutuambia, lakini amesema kwamba anahisi viongozi uchaguliwa kutokana na pesa na anahisi kwamba wabunge wamekuwa wanyama, lakini ametoa hoja kwamba anahisi suluhisho ni bunge kuvunjwa. Sijui asemaje bwana.
Bunge linaweza vunjwa iwapo kisheria ama itazingatiwa ama ionekane kwamba wabunge wetu wamekosa kusimamia maadili na muongozo wa kikatiba ambao umewapeleka pale. Rais ana uwezo wa kuvunja katiba kisheria, alafu tuitishe uchaguzi mwingine. Lakini sasa hivi hata tungevunja bunge, hatuna ile shirika la IABC ambayo inafanya kusimamia masuala ya uchaguzi. Kwa hivyo hata tukiweza kuvunjilia bunge mbali, tutajipata kwenye hali tatanishi, kwa sababu nani atasimamia uchaguzi? Hamna. Kwa hivyo nadhani ni vizuri kama Wakenya tukue na uvumilivu, kwa sababu hata hiyo commission ndio iwekwe ianze kuwa active, lazima wabunge watakuwa na input ndani yake. Kwa hivyo tunawahitaji wabunge sasa hivi. Kwa hivyo vyote vile, yani mahali penye tuko kama taifa leo ni kwamba ni kama tuko kwenye ndoa ambaye hampendani, lakini lazima mkae pamoja. Sababu kuna vitu ambavyo lazima zifanywe kwa ushirikiano wa mwingine ndio muweze kufika hatima yenu. Kwa hivyo kwa sasa ndio ni kubaya kama jinsi ambavyo kunaonekana kuwa, lakini tuvumiliane. 2027 haiko mbali, ni miaka michache tu tufike 2027, alafu Wakenya watachukua maamuzi. Lakini sasa tatizo ambayo tuko nalo kama nchi, sisi ni wepesi wa kuzungumza. Sasa hivi ukienda uliza wa Kenya, huyu mbunge wenu unamwonaje, watakwambia mambo yote mabaya kumuhusu. Lakini wakati wa uchaguzi ukifika, Rashid, mimi sijui wa Kenya wanapatwa na roho gani. Wakati wa uchaguzi ukifika, wa Kenya huwa wanasahau mambo yote mabaya ambao wameifanywa na wanasiasa. Bora apewe kitu kidogo, shilingi 100, 200, kwisha hiyo story imeisha. Kura kiongozi atapata, watu wataanza kujua kwamba huyu kiongozi ni mbaya baada ya kumpa nafasi. Ameenda vitu zinafanyika, ndio wanasema na yenyewe tulikosea, inafaa tufanye mpango, tubadilishe, tumuondoe huyu tuweke mwingine. Kwa hivyo tatizo ambalo tuko nalo sio hata viongozi, kwa sababu hawa viongozi hawajajiweka pale. Ni wewe kama Mkenya ulichukua hatua, ukaenda ukafika kwenye ballot, ukampatia yule kiongozi ambaye alikuwa amekupatia hongo ya shilingi 100 ama shilingi 200, ukampigia kura, ukamtuma kule. By that ulikuwa unampatia permission kwamba enda uibe pesa nyingi ndio ukija next time unipatie. Juzi wakati wa campaign kuna maana ilipita, mtu mmoja akaniambia, kitambo tulikuwa tunapewa 50, sasa tumepanda bei tunapewa 100. Next mtupe 200, next watasema 500. Kwa hivyo wana bargain, wapiga kura wana bargain kabisa, wanapewa hongo ya aina gani. Kwa hivyo mwisho wa siku utaona kwamba tatizo kubwa ambalo tuko nalo kama taifa ni kwamba sisi wapiga kura ndio wabaya. Hili taifa letu la Kenya wanaoliharibu sio viongozi, ni sisi wanaopigia hao viongozi kura na kuwapatia nafasi. Kwa hivyo kiturambe tu, kwa sababu sisi wenyewe tulitaka hii jambo lifanyike. Wanasema msiba ukitakiwa hauambiwi pole. Kwa hivyo huu ni msiba wetu.
Nakumbuka wakati mmoja aliyekuwa mbunge wa Garissa mjini, Mheshimiwa Aden Duale, ambaye kwa sasa ni waziri wa ulinzi, alisema taswira ambayo mnaiona na wabunge wenu ndio taswira mlionao nyinyi wapiga kura huko nchini. Tuyaache hapo. Mohamed Dawa kutoka Tana River Kipini amesema kwamba Kenya ina katiba na Kenya inaongozwa na katiba. Je, kwa sasa katiba imebadilishana na maandamano?
Ni swali nzuri. Kila mtu ambaye amekuwepo wakati maandamano yalikuwa yanafanyika, tukishuhudia uharibifu mwingi sana hapa nchini, ni kila mtu ataweza jiuliza swali kama hilo, kwamba Kenya imeacha kuwa nchi ya kikatiba na imekuwa nchi ya maandamano. Lakini pia ni vizuri pia ndugu msikilizaji aweze kukubali kwamba kwenye hii katiba ambayo tunaienzi kuna kipengee ambacho kimewaruhusu wa Kenya na watu wote ambao kwa njia moja au nyingine ambao wako na issue ama wako na shida kwa njia moja au nyingine, lazima wapewe nafasi ya kuweza kujiexpress. Kwa sababu pia tukiwa na nchi ambayo watu wamefinyiliwa hawezi wakajiexpress ama kujizungumzia, tutakuwa na shida kubwa sana. Nilikuwa na tafakari leo asubuhi kwamba kama tungekuwa na nchi ambayo mtu haruhusiwi kusema akiwa anaumia, tungekuwa tunakaa namna gani? Kwa sababu viongozi wangefanya madhambi yote na waende nyumbani walale, kwa sababu hakuna mtu anaweza kuzungumza. Kwa hivyo katiba hiyo imetupatia ama imewapatia Wakenya nafasi ya kuweza kuandamana. Tatizo ambalo lipo ni kwamba Wakenya wanaojitosa kwa sababu ya kuandamana wanavunja hiyo sheria, wakati ambapo wanaenda kuandamana wanakuwa na uharibifu, wizi, uporaji na vitu ambavyo vimekuwa vikishuhudiwa wakati wa maandamano. Lakini yakiwa ni maandamano ya amani, tumekuwa na maandamano ya madaktari, tumekuwa na maandamano ya nurses, maandamano ya walimu, hatujakuwa tukishuhudia uharibifu wakati wanafanya maandamano. Lakini maandamano yote ambayo yamechochewa kisiasa, tumeshuhudia uharibifu, wizi, mauaji na mambo mengi ambayo yanatokea. Kwa hivyo nadhani ni desturi tu watu wamejiwekea kwamba wakati kunafanyika maandamano ya aina hii lazima kufanyike hivi na hivi ndio tujisikie kwamba tumeandamana. Nimesikia wakati mwingine waandamanaji mahali wakisema maandamano bila tear gas bwana, sio maandamano, tunataka tear gas. Kwa hivyo wale wana hiyo nia ya kutaka kupigwa na tear gas, wana provoke hiyo tear gas, ndio wanafanya maandamano yanakosa ladha. Mwisho kabisa naambiwa muda wangu haunami. Vitalis kutoka Baringo ameuliza, rais akizingatia yale anayozungumza yatafaa, lakini asipozingatia itakuwa ni kama mchanga tu. Ni ukweli. Hapo nakubaliana 100%. Kwa sababu nimekuambia pale awali, tatizo ambayo tuko nalo Kenya, tuna watu wanenaji wazuri sana. Wanazungumza, wanaridhisha masikio yetu. Lakini watekelezaji, tatizo ambalo tuko nalo kubwa ni kutekeleza yale mambo ambayo tunayazungumzia. Iwapo kwa vyovyote vile serikali yetu ya Kenya inaweza kuanza kutekeleza mambo yote wamekuwa wakiahidi kufikia sasa, Kenya inaweza kuwa nchi nzuri sana, sio Afrika tu, lakini kote ulimwenguni. Lakini tatizo ambalo tuko nayo ni kwamba mambo yanazungumzwa, mikakati inawekwa, lakini utekelezaji ndio changamoto. Kwa hivyo iwapo mambo yote rais anazungumza yanaweza kutekelezwa, Kenya itakombolewa.
Mtazamaji, basi kufikia hapa hatuna budi kufunganya virago vyetu. Naarifiwa kwamba muda wangu umeisha hapa ndani ya studio, lakini kushukuru sana Bwana David Alulu Moko wa Jazi.
Shukran, nashukuru sana, asante.
Mtazamaji, basi kwa niaba ya wote ambao wamefanikisha kipindi hiki, ikiwa ni wapiga picha wangu hapa ndani ya studio, waelekezi wangu upande wa redio, upande wa runinga, mwenzangu Dora Manya, asanteni sana wasikilizaji. Kumbuka mtayarishi wa kipindi hiki ni ndugu Geoffrey Ondit Ondonga na Martin Kingasia. Jina langu naitwa Rashid Mwamkondo. Usisahau Jumanne kama ya leo unamnunua Dora Manya kwa bei ghali, alafu mimi Rashid unanipata bwerere. Kwaherini kwa sasa.
Msalimia Dora Manya.
Unajua, token mita yako inahitaji system update. Ni rahisi na ni free. Ukipata ujumbe kutoka Kenya Power, yani SMS, weka kodi ya kwanza kureset, alafu weke kodi ya pili kuupdate. Update token mita yako. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na Kenya Power and Lighting Company.
I never heard a music so sweet. I repeat.
Wagwan, me brethren, big things are going. Remember, each and every Monday we have to shell down the place with nothing but the best of smooth way the vibes in your favorite station. You know these things, man.
Alafu kila Tuesday, kata simu tupo side, giving you Kenyan music from the 254.
Napenda life, napenda dema na jidai, ati amefai.
of course, you can spice up your Wednesday by enjoying blazing hot hip-hop and R&B jams.
We don't got no label. She say she want bottles.
Vibes and vibes as we go all across Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, all the way to Tanzania to give you nothing but the best on Afro Thursday. Make sure you make a date with us each and every single Friday. With me, DJ_Liza Diva.
DJ Cold
And me, Wanjiko. This is Club One Extra.
Unanifanya nisikie kunyongwa. Hadija ai, mani especially ukisonga.
I have never seen such a book of a contract, yawa.
To make it worse, reading is not my strong suit. I just confirm the bay, alafu naweka kidole bahali yake.
That's true. That's correct. I am your counselor, and my name is Sir Nicholas.
Aye, kwani they didn't find anyone better? We don't utilize leftovers, you know.
That was very important, teacher. Pesa, you can proceed.
How about you settle down and we get this lesson kicking?
Kicking who? Malimon, by the way, we don't have time for your jokes. With all due respect, get out.
And we are back. This is Good Morning Kenya. Thank you for staying with us. Today is the 9th of July, a day when the president is expected to assent to the IABC bill, and that will be happening any moment from now from the KICC. So we will take you there immediately. That gets to take place. But today being a Tuesday, it is a Health Tuesday, and our topic of conversation today is on mental health wellness. How is your mental well-being? How do you make sure that you take care of your mental well-being? And for this particular conversation, I am joined by a counseling psychologist by the name Donald Okumu. Donald, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much,
You're
Vivian.
doing well this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Okay.
I know this is a question that as a psychologist, when you ask, you don't just expect someone to say, I am doing okay.
Yeah.
Right? I can imagine when someone comes to you and you ask them, how are you doing? You want details.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. We'll get into that. But first of all, let's begin with defining mental wellness. When we talk about mental wellness, what are we talking about?
Okay, when we are talking about mental wellness, it's good for us to think about it from the perspective of not just the lack of maybe a mental illness, but we are looking at desirable characteristics like resilience, stress management, emotional intelligence, and probably having some things in check. When we are talking about mental illness, we are talking about now an illness that affects how somebody thinks, somebody acts, and how somebody feels. So any illness that interferes with the way the brain functions is what we refer to as a mental illness. So the flip side of that is what we call a mental wellness. Not just the lack of it, but then the presence of some desirable characteristics. Yes.
So mental wellness is altogether like health for the mental state. Like one looking after their mental health means you generally just looking after yourself mentally, not necessarily meaning that you are not, you're not suffering from any illness, yes? You cannot be suffering from an illness, for a mental health illness, but at the same time, you could not be okay mentally.
You could not be okay mentally, and still you're not suffering from a mental illness. Sometimes you could be suffering from probably a physical illness, and that physical condition interferes with the three aspects that I talked about. I talked about your actions, your thoughts, and your feelings. So a physical illness can really interfere with that. It can interfere with how you interact with others, how you get to do your daily activities, how you relate, and things like that, aspects of your daily functioning. If that is affected, then that means your mental health is not probably in the best of positions. Yes.
And what really causes mental health conditions? Like, what are the underlying factors?
Okay, for specific mental illnesses, there are no direct causes, but we are talking about like several factors combined that can lead to specific mental conditions. When we're talking about probably biological factors or genetic predisposition, let's say, for example, you're coming from a family with maybe a specific mental condition, you could be a carrier of that gene. Yeah, but that does not necessarily mean that you suffer that mental illness until it is triggered by an external factor. Yeah, so this external factor could be substance use, stress, trauma, and things like that. It could trigger that a specific gene that you're carrying for a specific illness. So we're talking about genes, and then we're also talking about environment that you function in. So then we're also talking about social aspects. We can't talk about mental illnesses without paying close attention to peer influence. I know that's something that you've heard about a lot. Sometimes peer influence, negative peer influence for that matter, leads you to some specific decisions. You may end up making some decisions that can end up costing you your mental well-being. Yes, so we are talking about biological, we are talking about environmental, we are talking about social factors. At the same time, you can also be talking about psychological factors. And then psychological factors, in this case, we are talking about things like stress. We are talking about anxiety. We are talking about things that interfere with your mental well-being. So it could be a combination of several factors working hand in hand, sometimes overlapping, to cause a mental condition. So there's no direct cause.
There's no direct cause to it. There's something you've mentioned about one having, when it's hereditary, one could have a gene, you know, that is predisposed to that. And could this be the reason why, for some people, you might meet two people, and both of them abuse a certain drug? And the way this one reacts to it is very different compared to the other one. Like, one person would be someone who frequently uses these drugs, abuses this illegal drugs probably, and they seem to just be okay, you know, like it's a recreational thing that they do. But for someone else, the moment they do that, they almost go psycho. Could it be because they already have that gene, so they are exposing themselves to it?
Yes, genetically we could be talking about that specific gene leading to that. But then, as you are saying that, I'm drawn to a specific example. I'm looking at people the age of our grandparents. I don't know how old your grandparents are anyway. So people who would use drugs, and then they use them for a very long period of time, but then it seems like they function well. It seems like they function well. But then look at our generation, the younger generation. Somebody uses or abuses drugs 1-2 years, and then they have to be admitted to a psychiatric unit. Why? Because our bodies are wired differently. Sometimes we can be siblings, but then our genetic makeup is different. What gives us our identities as individuals, what differentiates us from the next person is different. So you realize that how our bodies are wired really determines how substances affect us. And also we are thinking about other mental conditions, not just substances. Some people, due to their personalities, due to some other issues that we are thinking about as probably environment, the support system, the kinds of relationships that they have around them, they are able to become more resilient. And then being more resilient means you have a higher chance of maintaining a good mental state.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it possible for one to know whether they are a carrier of such a gene? Is it really possible for one to know?
For somebody to know whether they are a carrier of a specific gene, now that needs a professional opinion, if I'd call it that. That needs you to link up with a professional, somebody who is going to do an in-depth analysis and assessment to get to see whether there is a genetic loading or a genetic predisposition to your specific condition.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. What maybe are some of the common mental health conditions that we get, that you've noticed that we struggle with in the country?
Okay. Currently, we are struggling with lots of mental health issues. We know what is ongoing, the maandamano, the high political temperatures, the hard economic times, and the lots of things that we are experiencing as a country. So sometimes these experiences can lead to things like anxiety. They can lead to things like depression. Sometimes in the protests, things like that sight of somebody being shot, it can lead to trauma. And then trauma can lead to a disorder called post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, if you've ever heard about that. Those are some of the common conditions that we can be talking about. But then when we are talking about age-specific mental illnesses, there are some specific mental conditions that are prevalent in children or in the young generation. We are talking about things like ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, that is characterized by hyperactivity, inattention, impulsivity, cheekiness, too much talkativeness, too much social interactions and things like that. That can be seen, the symptoms can be seen from as early as childhood. Then we can also be talking about autism spectrum disorder. That's also a disorder that is can be noticed in childhood. When we are talking about the religious involvement in activities, maybe specific or lack of interest in a wide range of activities and things like that, those could be some of the pointers towards autism. And then there could be some learning disorders where maybe some people cannot be able to write well, they cannot be able to read well, they cannot be able to master maybe small or easy mathematical tasks and things like that. So we're talking about learning disabilities that are also specific to childhood. When we're talking about adolescence, probably we are now talking about that aspect of peer influence. And when we're talking about peer influence now, when people are starting to identify themselves with a specific group, people are yearning to get to know themselves, sometimes yearning to belong to a specific group of people. When they long to do that, sometimes this peer influence kicks in, and then people start indulging in substances, or what we call psychoactive substances. When we are talking about that, then we are talking about another mental condition called substance use disorders. Substance use disorders are specific, depending on the specific substance that that person uses. We can also be talking about mood issues. That symptoms are also prevalent in adolescence and early adulthood. We are talking about bipolar mood disorder, for that matter. We can also be talking about now this experience. We are talking about the Gen Zs and things like that. when we are talking about that age bracket and the experiences that they get, there is a very high prevalence of PTSD that I just talked about previously. Then the use of drugs sometimes can lead to something we call psychotic illnesses. Yes, psychotic illnesses can be caused by drugs, and sometimes, just like I said, it could also be as a result of some genetic factors. So that could also be something that we consider when we are looking at some specific conditions in adolescence and early adulthood. Mid-adulthood to maybe adulthood, old age and things like that. We could be talking about depression, depression being one of the major conditions in those cases. When we are talking about depression, and some of the factors around people in mid-adulthood and adulthood and things like that, maybe high family demands, trying to balance between your personal life and work, it can lead to anxiety, it can lead to depression, it can also lead to some other mental conditions, any other that maybe we've mentioned even in adolescence and even childhood. Yes.
All right. I want us to be in tune with what has been happening in the country past three weeks now, almost 4 weeks. So for the young people who maybe were on the streets and they happened to witness some of their friends being shot, or happened to see the dead bodies that we got to see on the streets, maybe what would you advise them for them to like watch their mental wellness? How should they go about watching it now henceforth, after getting to witness such?
Okay, right now, looking at it from the angle of the current happenings, the current state of affairs, when we are looking at it from that angle, then that complicates it even further, because we are looking at a predisposition to specific factors that can lead to mental conditions. In this case, we are really talking about trauma, and trauma is one of the common mental conditions that we are looking at. For the young generation, sometimes the circumstances can really lead to mental illnesses, and then when we are able to deal with this circumstance, then we are able to look at probably the ripple effect of mental wellness, the overall mental well-being of the people. But sometimes it's good to really take care of yourself, even in the midst of some of these happenings. You can be able to take care of yourself. Probably checking with a professional could be one of the things. Sometimes some of the simple things that we always overlook but are very important, things like sleep. As an adult, we are talking about the young generation, but we are talking about people who are above 18, people who are maybe younger and things like that. But then even for the young generation, we are talking about the adults giving direction. Now, sleep is a very important aspect, that somebody as an adult, you need to sleep at least 8 hours, but not less than 6 hours in a day. That has lots of health effects, physically and also mentally. Sometimes our diet, what we eat also matters. Fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, white proteins and things like that. Those are some of the things that we can put into consideration. Sometimes physical exercise routine can also matter a lot, because when we exercise, our body releases hormones that are having effects on our well-being and also our physical fitness, as well as our physical wellness. That speaks to immunity in general. Yes.
So a good diet also contributes to proper mental health.
Yes, a good diet really contributes to proper mental health, and maybe to put a bit more emphasis on that. In every human's body, there is a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. And cortisol being a stress hormone, there's the high levels of cortisol are dangerous to our bodies because our body's response is maybe the levels of the cortisol are raised. When the levels of the cortisol are raised, it means there's a part of the brain called the amygdala that deals with the fight or flight. Maybe you've heard that from time to time, people talking about fight, flight, freeze, and that response when something happens to you. So when you are having that response, maybe you are terrified, something happens to you that maybe invokes fear and things like that, you get to, the cortisol levels get high. When the cortisol levels get high, they can get high to levels of toxicity. When they get to levels of toxicity, then it means you are more predisposed to mental illnesses. So it's just for body's response for short-term management of stress. But then when you are predisposed to stress for long periods of time, then that means you are highly likely to suffer other conditions related to cortisol toxicity. Yes. Yes.
All right. I want us to look at maybe how one would assess, you know, someone that is suffering from a mental health condition. For example, you talked of mood disorders, you know, the likes of bipolar and so on. And most of the times during that teenage stage, some people just get moody, you know. So where do we draw the line? Or how can a parent or a guardian get to know that, okay, for this particular child of mine or for this particular one, they could be having an issue? Like, where do you draw the line between being moody just because you're under the weather or you're just feeling like everyone is annoying you and, you know, it being a disorder?
Okay. When we are looking at specific conditions, we are talking about a specific criteria for you to be diagnosed with a specific mental condition. And something which is general for whichever mental condition is the effect it has on your social functioning and also your occupational functioning. Yeah. So a mental condition, one, must have an effect on how you interact with others and then how you engage in your daily activities, school, work, and things like that. And then it also has to cause a significant distress, yes, to you as a person. It has to concern you that, why am I like this? Why does this happen to me? But then before you get to notice that it has some effects on you, sometimes you cannot be able to see. Sometimes there is something called denial in mental conditions, whichever mental condition. Most people are in denial. And when you are in denial, sometimes you're not able to see what exactly is up with you. And that's why we always say, even as a guardian, as a parent, as a caregiver, as whoever, as a significant other, as a boss, anybody else, if probably you are noticing something is up with somebody that you know, it is good to look for professional help, to look for a professional opinion. That really helps to get to see the level of damage that illness has caused or is likely to cause. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And speaking about that, you know, there's always a stigma around mental wellness. You know, as you said, when you find out, when you realize that, you know, something is amiss, you know, be free to seek professional advice. You know, don't ignore it, do not deny that denial that you're talking about. But then there's the stigma that surrounds mental wellness. I mean, let's get into that issue.
Yeah.
What can you say about it?
Well, there is stigma, the negative aspects of people who suffer mental conditions. People have opinions about them. Sometimes when we're talking about mental health, we're talking about mental wellness, the next thing that somebody thinks about is mtu amechizi. Yeah. Yes. Somebody thinks about somebody who is insane, somebody who is in the streets, probably kuokota takataka and things like that. But we are not talking about that really. Yeah. Sometimes we only stigmatize against something that we have no knowledge about. So I really implore with anybody who is hearing this, get to really understand what exactly mental health is about, get to explore and get to understand how can you offer support without actually judging. Maybe you and I, because we're having this discussion, we can start by making that small step of being non-judgmental, listening more, getting to understand before maybe putting a tag to somebody that we think probably suffers a mental condition, or maybe looking at them as probably lesser humans and things like that. Because if anything, nobody is immune. Nobody is immune to mental illnesses. Anybody can suffer.
Yep.
So getting knowledge, being of support to one another, creating safe spaces that we can have people talk about themselves without being judged. But then also again, sometimes there is an aspect of vulnerability that comes with maybe having a mental condition. Even if we encourage people to open up, to talk about some of these issues, you cannot go talking about your problems with just anybody, because we are now talking about being open to some of these issues. We are talking about having safe spaces, creating a support system around you, having people that you can really talk to, and you don't feel judged, you don't feel less of a person because of that circumstance or that predicament that has befallen you. Yes.
All right. Okay. On that note, we take a short break. Don't you go too far. We'll be back to continue with our conversation. Stay tuned.
Thank you for joining us on Healthy Living. Stay connected to Voice of America at voanews.com. A look at your kidneys and how they impact your health. And an expert discusses chronic kidney disease and how to protect yourself. And Ivorian psychologist Noor Bakayoko shares some insights on bullying and what can be done.
It's important to avoid major events or major health crises.
How do you know if your cough is due to a serious condition? We'll have some answers. Stay well
and strive to make every day a healthy day.
On KBC Channel 1, we are a TV station like no other. Get a taste of the best in entertainment.
Yes, indeed.
Feel the passion.
Will you promise me?
I swear that you will never lose me. I can't get married to you.
I'm sure you knew about it. That's why you're making fun of me.
Experience the drama.
Get out.
Who is the man in this one?
And the laughter.
Hii wigi umevatishwa. Sile wakati tulikuwa tunaapishwa tunapewa mheshimiwa.
Move to the beat.
We are live from Broadcasting House.
And get informed on the latest happenings. KBC Channel 1.
Wow. Yeah!
We are the full package.
Oh, yes.
And Kenya's watching.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Kenya Health Tuesday, and we have been talking about mental health wellness. Now, Donald, when it comes to the misconceptions that are around mental health, you've said, first of all, the first thing people think of when you tell them you're not, you're having a mental condition or something like that, they automatically think that you are crazy, cheesy, as was the word that you used. Now, what are some of the misconceptions maybe that you would love to debunk as a psychologist, that you would love to put it out there and debunk? Yeah.
Okay. First of all, suffering a mental condition is not necessarily about being insane or being crazy. Yeah. Sometimes anybody, an average human being, responds to adversities in a natural way, and then that natural way can sometimes lead to mental illnesses. Now, when we are talking about the current happenings in our country, Kenya, any normal human being may not just see it as normal as maybe somebody else might think about it. But if anybody thinks about it as normal, then we need to start asking ourselves questions. When we are talking about circumstances that they lead to a significant amount of distress. They lead to a significant amount of mental disturbance. When we're talking about mental disturbance from that angle, then we are talking about everybody being susceptible to specific mental conditions. So mental conditions, the other thing is not age specific. Yeah. Mental conditions is not gender specific. Though there are some prevalent mental health issues that are specific to some genders and some ages and things like that. But then generally, anybody can suffer a mental condition. Nobody is immune to a mental illness. Number two, the other thing that I'd also like to talk about is a myth about mental illnesses. Sometimes checking in maybe a mental health institution does not necessarily mean that you are mentally ill. I've seen people go to rehabilitation centers. I've seen people go to mental hospitals and things like that. And then the society thinks the labels that they are given, this person is not so good, this person is not so stable. Having gone to a mental institution, you must be crazy, you must be badly off. But then that's not the case. Sometimes people just go, just like any other person would go to hospital. Maybe you suffer from a headache, you go to hospital. I suffer from a headache, I choose not to go to hospital. Does not mean that we are suffering anything different. We are just suffering the same things, just that the routes that we've taken are different. What I'd also talk about is the fact that mental conditions can also vary. They can also vary in severity. Sometimes when we are talking about insanity and things like that, sometimes those are some bad tags that can be stigmatizing, they can be victimizing, they can be segregating, or maybe any other term that you can think about. When we are talking about the differences in severity, this is something that can only be assessed by probably professionals. Getting to see how severe is your mental condition, and then getting to support these people, maybe somebody who maybe talks about their mental state, somebody who talks about maybe some struggles, talks about some of the things that they have to go through on a daily basis. Instead of judging, supporting them to seek maybe a professional opinion and getting to see how severe their conditions could also really help. So what we need to understand is that the severity of mental illnesses also vary. Yes. The other thing is that all mental illnesses vary in terms of the symptomatology or how they present. All mental illnesses have different ways of appearing, and probably looking at something that you really can't understand. Somebody doesn't look sick physically, but then when you think about how they talk, the rate of their speech, the content of their thoughts, their ideas, and how they interact with people, how they get to do some of their daily things, sometimes you may not understand, but then the best that you can do to these people is to hook them up with professionals. Yes.
Yeah. As it is right now, at the moment, would you say that Kenyans are more open to seeing, therapists, psychologists, and so on? Are we at a point where you, as a psychologist, you are getting people come to, come to seek professional advice? Are we at a point where, as a country, people are open to it? Because for the longest time, mental health issues have been, it's a talk that is normally spoken of in harsh tones. So people are not open to go see therapists and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So are we at that point yet?
We've made commendable progress, I'd say that, but we are not there yet.
Okay.
Because when we are still talking about mental illness, we are talking about mental wellness, and then we cannot separate that discussion from stigma, then that means there's some more work that can be done, some more effort that can be put in. But then I like the efforts that have been made, maybe from a government's perspective, probably from the previous regime. There is a mental health policy, 2015 to 2030, that looks to make mental health part of primary care. Just like any other condition, physical. We also are looking to include mental health as part of that policy, as part of primary care. We're also looking at equitability in terms of provision of mental health services. We are looking at accessibility, and then we are looking at professionalism through that policy, the mental health policy 2015 to 2030. Maybe that's something that somebody may want to familiarize themselves with. Then there's also an aspect of, there's a task force actually, mental health task force that was instituted in 2019, that looks to assess the mental health condition in Kenya, the state of mental health affairs, and then give recommendations to the government what can be included. And then some of the things that have been noted as some of the challenges that we face as a country is maybe low funding, lack of access or poor access to mental health, because there are not as many mental health professionals out there. And then sometimes affordability is also an issue. Mental health services are not that cheap.
They're not cheap.
Yeah, they are not that cheap. And then not many people are willing to incur that cost to get to see some of these issues sorted out. Then from maybe a legal perspective, we are looking to decriminalize mental illnesses. And one of the things that I'd like to put out there is that we don't say somebody commits suicide. Yeah.
What do we say?
When we say committing suicide, then we are saying maybe somebody has chosen, has chosen to die, or maybe it is an offense. It's not an offense. Suicide is the heaviest weight under which somebody falls when they're suffering a condition, a mental illness. It is just a cause of death like any other illness. So we say somebody has died by suicide. I was reading an article of a certain lady in Kisii who took her life after being caned by their area assistant chief.
Sad story.
Yes, a very sad story.
Yeah.
But then I liked the headline. Maybe for the first time in many years, I've read something like as that lady, the young lady died by suicide, not committed suicide, which is a good thing. When we say commit, then we are talking about a crime. It's not a crime. Nobody chooses to die. If you are okay, if you are stable, everything is okay. Can you think about death?
Not really.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can. Death only comes when you're suffering from a condition. So from that legal perspective, we are looking to decriminalize suicide, decriminalize mental illnesses. It is not wrong to suffer any condition. Just like I said, nobody is immune. Anybody can suffer. Anybody can get a mental illness.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that you've clarified that, or rather what you've said. You do not report it as someone died by committing suicide. You just say they died by suicide.
Yes, somebody.
Omit that word, commit.
Yes, you don't commit death.
Okay.
You don't commit death. You die. You just die. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the best way to manage stress and anxiety? Yeah.
to add on the things that I talked about diet, I talked about exercise, I talked about sleep. Those are some of the good things that we can always look at. But then to add on to them, sometimes we are not very good at rewarding ourselves. And then rewarding ourselves from the perspective of probably having to create time for our hobbies, create time for the things that we like. We like to do. When we are able to create that time, we are rewarding ourselves by ensuring that our body produces more happy hormones. When we are producing more happy hormones, then we are able to become more resilient. We are able to look at some of these issues from the angle of getting to deal with issues as they come, and then that adds on to our adversity quotient. When you're able to deal with circumstances around us, then we're talking about some of those issues. Something else that we can also be looking at when we are talking about managing stress and things like that, having a support system around you. Having a support system around you. Who do you call your friend? Do you have people that you can really call friends? And then who are your friends? Who are your acquaintances? Who are your buddies and things like that? Know the difference. Somebody who you can really be open with, somebody that you can really share with, without feeling like you're being a burden, or without feeling like you're being judged, without feeling like you're not good enough and things like that. So some of those issues or some of the support system that you can have around you can really have a very good effect on you as a human being. Another thing is avoiding what you can avoid. Yes, in terms of things that can cause stress. If you are able to avoid probably high stress situations, maybe confrontations, maybe getting into small fights, disagreements and things like that, when you're able to avoid that, you can avoid. You can avoid what you can avoid, and then probably getting to deal with what you can deal with from a sober perspective, dealing with them in very sober ways, maybe probably getting to involve a third party. Yes, in circumstances whereby you're not able to deal with it, maybe between you and the next person and things like that, just involve a neutral third party, as opposed to getting into conflicts and getting to see some of the things that can really cost you your relationship with that person. When your relationship with that person is not at its best, then we can be talking about you predisposing yourself to a mental condition. Yes.
How best can one monitor, their mental health? How can I be able to monitor my mental wellness or health rather?
Okay. First of all, I get to do some of the things that I've just talked about. Then from time to time, like we always say, go for regular checkups to check your BP, to check your blood sugar, maybe eye checkups and things like that. The same way, have regular dates with professionals. Yes, you can see them from time to time, get to hear what they have to offer, what can they provide, and then what kind of support can you give yourself. Then also, as a way of ensuring that your mental health is in check, you should also ensure that you have positivity around you. Avoid negativity by all means, because that in unconventional ways hijacks the way you think, the way you make sense of situations, the way you adjust to circumstances and things like that. So that's something that, those are some of the things that you can really consider.
For someone who's already suffered from a mental condition or mental illness, is it treatable, first of all? Most of these conditions, illnesses to be specific, are they treatable, or it's something that would very easily recur?
Treatable, yes, but curable, that's where we can debate. When we are talking about treatment and management of mental illnesses, probably we are going to look at it from the angle of medications. Sometimes when we are talking about, I'll take you back to the causes of mental illnesses that we started with. when we are talking about depression, for instance, when we are talking about the direct medication for depression, we are talking about antidepressants. But then look at the causes of this illness. When we are talking about probably some interpersonal issues like family pressure, work-related stress, we are talking about trauma, we are talking about high stress circumstances and things like that. When we are talking about that as the causes of your depression, then you will realize that you may not be able to achieve much with the antidepressant. The antidepressant, what it does, it just increases the levels of the happy hormones in your brain so that you are able to feel more happier as compared to the feelings of sadness, loneliness, having low moods, feeling like nobody, no one, nothing, not having an identity and things like that. When you take an antidepressant, that's the effect that it has on your brain. But then can this antidepressant change your circumstance probably at home? It cannot. It cannot. Now, at this point, we are talking about therapy. Therapy can also be of help in getting to address some of the interpersonal issues that could be causing these specific conditions. So we are talking about managing. If you are going back to that same environment that led to depression, then we are looking at a high chance of what we call relapse. Relapse to this specific condition. But then if there is a change, if there is maybe a overhaul, it may not be complete, but then there could be an overhaul in maybe the setup that you're going to function in when maybe probably after treatment and things like that, that could really be of great help. Some other conditions can be treated and then they will remit. Remission, by that we mean the improvement of these symptoms. Then relapse, the coming back of these symptoms. So mental illnesses by nature are remitting and relapsing. Yes, the symptoms can go away, the symptoms can come back, depending on the circumstances again, because there is no direct cause. An environment, a circumstance, a situation, an adversity can really lead to a mental condition. Yes.
All right. There's information that I hear out here, let me say out here, let me not put a specific source to it, on antidepressants. And since you're here, I would love for you to like give us the proper info on it. You know, when someone is on antidepressants, does this mean that they will be dependent on them for life? Because I've had people say if you can avoid antidepressants, the better. So this sometimes may cause someone to, you know, keep denying and ignoring getting into them simply because they've had that once. The moment you're onto them, it's for life.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, let me say that medications are not only antidepressants. There are several categories of medications. And then when we are talking about these categories, we are talking, there's that important aspect that you've talked about, the dependence bit of it. Sometimes people can get dependent to specific medications, but then the level of dependence or the risk of dependence varies with specific medications. When you are taking a specific medication, it is good that you take it under the instruction of your caregiver, your doctor. You need to take that medication as prescribed. And sometimes there are some other medications that are highly addictive that you are only probably allowed to take in a controlled setup, maybe in an institution, like a mental health institution, because the moment you get out of that, whereby nobody can really watch over how you take the medications or how you adhere to the medications, you are not likely to take those medications maybe when you're not in an institution. So when you are being given a medication, what is being considered is probably if you have a condition, if you have a condition, a physical or another mental condition, that is being looked at, and then the risk of dependence is also being looked at. You realize that most of these newer generations of medications are not as addictive as the older generations. So that is something that is being considered. But then something else that I'd also like to say is that just like we say that probably medication could be the last resort to getting better, maybe in physical illnesses and things like that. We always say that probably when you are having a small headache, you are having maybe a stomach upset, drugs should not be the go-to thing. So actually getting to do things the right way before it gets to the space whereby you have to take medications, it is good to take precautions. It's good to take good care of ourselves before getting to levels of having to be on medications.
On medication.
Yes.
All right, now we've come to the end of the conversation, but just before we wind up, I will allow you to give us your last remarks, rather.
Okay, thank you very much for having me here once again. And thank you for serving me my favorite beverage. That's
the coffee.
Yes, that's so kind of you. What I'd like to tell people who are hearing us is that it is not too late to look for that help. It is not always too late to get to start something. It's not always too late to get going. Don't wait for a small issue to become a big problem for you to think about sorting it out. If you look at it from that angle, then you are likely to suffer circumstances that may not be reversible. You are likely to get to situations that are costly, situations that are stressful to you and to your kin and to anybody else. So if anything, if there is a small issue, don't overlook it. Talk about it, try to see solutions around it. Yes, that's all I can say.
Thank you so much, Donald Okumu, for joining us for this conversation. That was Donald Okumu, a counseling psychologist, and this is where we call it a wrap this morning on Good Morning Kenya. Remember, the president is set to assent to the IABC bill today, and that will be happening at the KICC any moment from now. So do stay tuned, because we'll be covering that for you on, or rather in our subsequent bulletins. My name is Vivian Degwa. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Goodbye.
Sheria lazima kufuatwa.
Sheria gani?
Kila mtu asimamisha anachokifanya, biashara zote zifungwe.
Nitakuja kukuangalia, lakini sasa hivi nitakuja kuangalia baadaye, maana kitafaa kwenda kwa kutawaza kwa kiongozi mpya.
Na kusudia kuimarisha uchumi wetu wa hapa Funzi. Imarike hivi kwamba tusiwe tena tukitegemea bodo.
Kama ni jasiri itabidi pale apaondoke, na kama ni huyo sitara atafutiwe wazazi wake pale wako, arudishwe kwao.
Artificial intelligence that evaluates traffic and can prevent congestion. Autonomous flying vehicles that communicate with each other. It all sounds pretty cool, but do innovations like this really make travel better for us? What is the future of smart mobility today?